Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. The opening fusion in One Punch Man. Chapter 41. After seeing Ferguson finish his report, he was still standing where he was. Bai Yi asked, "Is there anything else you want to say?" Ferguson hesitated for a moment, then said, "Major General Bai Yi, Doflamingo's auction house is holding an auction today. It is said that the auction items include devil fruits and slaves. Didn't they report it to us?" "No." "Okay. I understand. You can go and do other things first." Ferguson glanced at Yoruichi in confusion, and left the office without speaking again. He never understood that Bai Yi promulgated those 5 rules in order to completely transform the lawless zone into a place guarded by Marine. But these days, Bai Yi turns a blind eye to those who break the rules, as if everything is the same as before the rules were made. Some brave pirates even attacked patrolling soldiers directly. If these people hadn't known that this place was only half a day away from the Marine headquarters, they wouldn't have dared to kill him. Otherwise, the casualties of soldiers would be in double digits. But Bai Yi still didn't react to this. He just called back all the patrolling Marine soldiers and stopped sending them out. Just pretend this didn't happen. This has caused many people in the lawless land to openly mock Marine, saying that the rules are crap. After injuring the Marine soldier, Marine didn't even dare to fart. It's really funny that he wants to change the rules of a lawless place. Even many of the soldiers below began to complain about the rules promulgated by Bai Yi. I think if it weren't for Byakuya's rules, these pirates wouldn't have such a strong reaction to Marine. Some school-level officers believed that Bai Yi was too young, took things too naturally, and did not consider the consequences. They were planning to propose that Bai Yi revoke these 5 rules. Let the Sabayati Islands return to their former appearance. The more radical ones even want to suggest that Marine headquarters change someone to manage the Sabayati Islands. Ferguson felt that Bai Yi should know these things, but Bai Yi had no reaction until now. Just let things unfold. If he hadn't been with Bai Yi for half a year, he would have known how cruel Bai Yi's methods were. It is estimated that his current thoughts are not much different from those of other soldiers. If this continues, Byakuya himself and Marine from Sabayati will become a joke on the sea. But until now, he still believes that Bai Yi has his own reasons for doing this. So he didn't mention these things in front of Bai Yi. Bai Yi looked at Ferguson's leaving figure and didn't say much. He knew very well what Ferguson was thinking, and he even knew what news was circulating outside. But these were his deliberate indulgences. For Bai Yi, he didn't want to waste time with these people on the Sabayati Islands. "So I want to solve it at once without leaving any hidden dangers. The best way is to quietly watch the situation unfold. Let those people feel that Marine has no binding force on them, and that he can completely ignore what he says all night long. More people will come out to cause trouble." Then, Bai Yi caught all the people who were dancing for joy. "How happy you are dancing now, how painful it will be when you cry." This method is commonly known as fishing law enforcement. But just sitting idle like this is obviously not Bai Yi's style. When he just heard that Doflamingo's auction house was holding an auction, Bai Yi knew what to do today. Previously, since Leslie had promised to avenge Colonel Hull and other soldiers. "Let's go to the auction house today to collect some interest. Smoker, get ready, I will take you to see the world today." Bai Yi and Smoker went to the auction house without any hesitation. The two were wearing Marine headquarters Major General uniforms, with cloaks of justice draped behind their backs. The flawless white military uniforms were very conspicuous. The two of them walked coquettishly on the street, fearing that no one would see them. It's a pity that instead of looking at people with fear and panic, they were greeted with looks of disdain and disgust. I feel that if it weren't for the 2 Marine Major Generals, they might not be able to defeat them. Otherwise, they would all want to come up and leave a dirty footprint on their white clothes. Even with Smoker's thick skin, he felt extremely embarrassed and wanted to kill all those people who looked at them with contempt. But looking at Bai Yi aside, he looked calm and composed, not paying attention to other people's weird looks. Smoker had to admire Bai Yi's city. He had such strong strength at the age of 18, and he could still hold his breath so calmly. He is indeed a man I would like to follow. Just as Smoker was sighing, he suddenly saw Bai Yi taking out an image phone bug from his arms. I started taking pictures of the people and shops around me, and kept mumbling. That kid over here scolded me a few words. Just wait for death. The owner of this store looks at me with contempt. Your store is gone. Huh, the woman on the left complimented me on how handsome I am and how discerning I am. I'll let you go. Quote. After Smoker heard Bai Yi's words, he almost knelt down to Bai Yi on the spot. What kind of naughty operation is this? Brother, you are really good at playing. You've finally figured it out about holding grudges. The admiration he had for Bai Yi just now was already fed to the dogs by Smoker. The two of them walked all the way to the auction house, and Bai Yi reluctantly put away the image phone bug in his hand. Reluctantly, he said, only 187 people were recorded today, which is too few. For Bai Yi, remembering someone is making money. No one will think that he has too much money. Smoker, from now on we will both go out every day. I want to see how many people there are on Sabayati that I can kill. Smoker secretly thought, tisk tisk, this is the big killer in my memory. No matter how shameless he is in normal times, he is not ambiguous at all when killing someone. When the two were about to enter the auction, they were stopped by two security guards at the door. The security guard on the left raised his neck and said arrogantly, please show the invitation letter from the auction house. Guests without an invitation letter are not allowed in. It seems that Bai Yi and Smoker, the two Marine headquarters major generals, are not as good as him, the door security guard. Smoker said in a bad tone, you have eyes just to vent your anger. Didn't you see that we are Major General Marine? Faced with Smoker's threat, the security guard remained unmoved and said coldly, if you don't have an invitation letter, you are not allowed to enter. This is the rule of this auction house. Just when Smoker was about to get angry, a woman's chuckle suddenly sounded from the side. Bai Yi and Smoker looked at it. A man and a woman were standing next to each other hand in hand. The man was pale, with sunken eyes. He was wearing a straight suit and looked like a dog. The woman was wearing a backless dress and looked very coquettish, attracting the attention of many passers-by. My dear, Marine is so rude when compared to you. The charming woman hugged the man's arm and said sweetly. Harris hugged the seductive woman into his arms, and moved his big hands around the seductive woman's body as if no one was watching. He said with a lewd smile, of course, there are a bunch of reckless men in Marine. That's why Marine Fleet Admiral Waring states is pretty good. Harris spoke without any hesitation, and Bai Yi and Smoker heard what he said clearly. Smoker immediately became popular. He was despised all the way, and then stopped by security guards when he arrived at the auction house. Now there are actually two people who look like dogs, humiliating Marine in front of him. Even the Sengoku Fleet Admiral can only be regarded as an, okay, evaluation in their mouth. This made Smoker, who was already grumpy, unable to restrain his desire to take action. His arms turned into smoke, and when he was about to catch the man, two ghost-like figures suddenly appeared in front of the man. One of them said in a hoarse voice, we are all colleagues, we just said the wrong thing. There is no need to use the fruit ability, right? Smoker has also been in the Marines for nearly 10 years. When he saw that the other party was also wearing a white suit and a silver mask, and he was still using the sixth form of Marine, he probably guessed the other party's identity. Secret intelligence agency directly under the world government. To be able to use personnel from a secret intelligence organization to protect him, this man's identity is absolutely extraordinary. Bai Yi said calmly, don't you need to pay the price if you say something wrong? Who are you? Major General of Marine Headquarters, Bai Yi. Bai Yi. The speaker seemed to suddenly remember something. As members of a secret organization, they need to remember a large amount of information about people, whether they are enemies or friends. And half a year ago, they had seen Bai Yi's information. Zepha's beloved disciple had beaten 600 in the training camp, and his strength was probably between the Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General and Quasi-General. The recently updated information on Bai Yi's side only states that he has been appointed as Major General of the Marine Headquarters and is responsible for managing Islands 1 to 29 in Sabayati. His strength is unknown, but the lowest estimate is that he will be a Major General. Thinking of this, the expressions under their masks gradually became panicked. Unexpectedly, they encountered a tough problem this time when they went out. He quickly explained, this is Harris, the son of Finance Minister Wells, and everyone is from the world government. Bai Yi's cold words suddenly sounded, One arm, I can pretend I didn't hear it. Harris, apologized to Bai Yi. Harris was immediately angry, pointed at Bai Yi and said angrily, Marlowe, you want me to apologize to a little major general. One arm, plus one leg. Marlowe was anxious, apologize. He didn't dare to bet on whether Bai Yi would take action. If Bai Yi really took action, they might not be able to leave here alive. Harris was stunned. He had never seen Marlowe look so anxious. Although he is a playboy, he is not a fool. Seeing that Marlowe had such a tough attitude and insisted on forcing him to apologize, he realized that the Major General in front of him was probably not someone he could offend. At this time, regardless of his image in front of his female companion, he bent over and apologized to Bai Yi. I'm sorry, Major General Bai Yi, I just made a mistake. But before Harris could get up, there was a flash of the knife, and Harris' right arm suddenly lost all feeling, and severe pain surged into his brain like a tide. The knife was drawn so fast that Marlowe and the two men could not react at all. The blood spurted from Harris' broken arm directly splashed the female companion's face. Seeing the blood on her hands and face, the charming woman had never seen such a scene before. She screamed and fainted. Harris held his broken arm, rolling on the ground in pain, and kept wailing, "Ah, my arm. My arm." Marlowe didn't expect that Bai Yi would still take action even after Harris apologized. He couldn't help but said angrily, Major General Bai Yi, Master Harris has already apologized. Bai Yi carelessly picked his ears with his little finger. He pointed at me with his right hand just now, which made me very unhappy. The tone in which you speak to me now also makes me very unhappy. You can try another sentence. Look, whether my next stab will fall on you or on Harris. Hearing this, Marlowe suddenly didn't dare to speak, silently picked up Harris' broken arm, and helped Harris away with his companions. As for the female companion who fainted on the ground, she pretended not to see her at all. This is a lawless zone, and no one living here is a good man or woman. After losing Harris' asylum, this woman's fate is almost foreseeable. Bai Yi turned around and looked at the two guards at the door of the auction house. Are you still going to let us in now? After seeing Bai Yi's ruthless methods, the two guards dared not say no, otherwise they would probably be stabbed. But if Bai Yi and the two were allowed to go in directly, they would be in trouble if they were blamed. While the guard was in a state of confusion, a man who was shorter, slightly wider, and dressed more luxuriously suddenly walked out of the auction house. The guard breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the visitor, and quickly went up and asked, Mr. Boyle, these two Marines want to come in, but they don't have an invitation letter. Boyle did not pay attention to the guard, but walked up to Bai Yi and said respectfully, Sir Bai Yi, Mr. Smoker, I'm so sorry. I should have sent you two invitations, but I was so busy that I forgot about it. Please don't be angry. Quote, really, is it really a moment of negligence? I heard from my subordinates that you were going to auction slaves at this auction, but you didn't report it to Marine. Could it be that you forgot about it because of a moment of negligence? As the saying goes, don't hit someone with a smiling face. Boyle's attitude when he came up was definitely respectful enough, but it was a pity that such an attitude was of no use to Bai Yi. Because he was determined to find trouble today. Boyle seemed to see that White Knight's visitor was unkind, but the smile on his face remained unchanged and he whispered, Sir White Knight, it is said that Esther Kirk will come to participate in this auction. Esther Kirk Street, Celestial Dragon, didn't expect to meet the Celestial Dragons so soon. I think back then Bai Yi had the idea of killing the Tianlong people to become famous in the sea, so as to obtain a large amount of world source power. It's just that Marine's identity is still of great use to Bai Yi now. Otherwise, Bai Yi really wants to test the sword with Tianlong Ren. Bai Yi narrowed his eyes slightly, are you threatening me with the Celestial Dragons? Don't dare, it's just that Esther Kirk is here to participate in this auction. If it is suddenly cancelled due to other reasons, Esther Kirk will probably be very dissatisfied. If it arouses the anger of Esther Kirk, no one will be able to explain it at that time. Quote, Boyle feigned alarm. Bai Yi and Smoker, led by Boyle, entered the auction house and sat in the first row on the left. There are about 200 seats in the auction house. When the two came in, most of the seats were already occupied. Byakuya and Smoker, wearing Major General Marine costumes, attracted quite a lot of attention. This is because Marines rarely attend such auctions, and those who attend are usually pirates, bounty hunters, and underground forces. Occasionally, celestial dragons would come to the auction house to buy slaves. But for Marine, most of the items in the auction house have no effect on them. And in the lawless zone, you can't catch pirates. Coming here will only arouse the hatred of many pirates towards you, so it is better not to come. Especially no one who dares to wear a Marine uniform to participate in the auction. The appearance of Bai Yi and Smoker refreshed their understanding. These two Marine Major Generals are so arrogant. It's better to wait until the auction is over and kill them both. Anyway, the Marine on the island is a coward. He can't do anything to us if he kills the two Major Generals. At worst, kill them and escape by boat. By then, even if Marine headquarters sends people to catch us, we will have already disappeared without a trace. Quote. That's right, this can also increase our reward amount a lot. Several pirate groups sitting next to each other discussed joining forces, looking at Bai Yi with murderous intent in their eyes. For pirates, the size of the bounty is the best way to show their strength. Just like people often say that the total bounty of a certain Four Emperors pirate group is more than 20 billion belly. This is a recognition of the strength of the pirate group. The fastest way to increase the bounty amount is to kill Marine generals. To put it simply, these pirates want to increase their reputation by killing Byakuya. When the time comes, you might be able to become a subordinate of the Four Emperors by entering the New World. Bai Yi, do we really want to participate in this auction? Smoker asked in confusion. After hearing that the celestial dragons would be coming to this auction, Smoker didn't want to stay any longer. As long as Marine has a sense of justice, almost no one can stand the actions of the celestial dragons. Even for Marine, the existence of the celestial dragons is the greatest irony to the justice they uphold. It's just that the status of Tianlong people has been deeply rooted and inherited from 800 years ago. The idea that celestial dragons are gods has also been passed down for 800 years. Therefore, even if they are dissatisfied with the celestial dragons, they can only avoid them like Garp. Try not to come into contact with the celestial dragons. An inexplicable glint flashed in Bai Yi's eyes, and he chuckled, why not? You don't really think that the Tianlong people's visit this time is a coincidence, do you? Smoker was stunned when he heard this, isn't it? Think about it for yourself. As soon as we arrived at the entrance of the auction house from the Marine base, we met Harris, the son of the Minister of Finance, and had a conflict with him. After I cut off Harris' arm and Harris left in embarrassment, the auction house owner Boyle appeared. I said that they did not report the slave trade to Marine, and Boyle informed us that Esther Kirk will participate in the auction and use the Draco to suppress me. You think these are just coincidences? After Bai Yoruichi explained it, Smoker connected these things and felt that it was too much of a coincidence. But there's something Smoker still doesn't understand. Even if the auction is Doflamingo's property, how can he command the finance minister's son and the celestial dragons? Just because he is a Shichibukai. Bai Yi explained patiently, it's naturally not enough to rely on the identity of a Shichibukai, but what if Doflamingo himself is a celestial dragon? Why was Doflamingo able to contact the Draco to put pressure on Marine? Isn't it because of his identity as a former celestial dragon, although he has always been despised by the celestial dragons living in Mariajoya? But their attitude towards Doflamingo is obviously much stronger than that of other civilians. Moreover, Doflamingo may hold the secret of the celestial dragons. What? Doflamingo is a celestial dragon? Smoker almost shouted in surprise. No matter what, he never imagined that a celestial dragon could go to sea and become a pirate, and even become a Shichibukai recognized by the world government. But the reality is so outrageous. Just like Smoker doesn't understand why Doflamingo became a pirate. Doflamingo also didn't understand why his father would give up his identity as a Draco and become a civilian. In the end, he was killed by civilians whom he had always regarded as inferior. While the two were talking, a violent commotion suddenly broke out at the door of the auction house. The owner and staff of the auction house all knelt down at the door and shouted loudly, "Welcome to Esther Kirk Street, Maple Cecil Palace." Generally, male celestial dragons will add the character Sheng after their names, while female celestial dragons will add the character Gong after their names to show their nobility. The two heavenly dragons wore bubble hoods and expensive and gorgeous clothes, riding male slaves of the Long Hand clan, followed by more than a dozen slaves entering from the door. The two celestial dragons are not like the celestial dragons who appear in the anime, who are extremely ugly and have low intelligence. Instead, they look like a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Of course, the only similarity is that you can feel the superior aura and contempt for the common people from the brows. When the celestial dragons entered, most of the pirates' expressions changed slightly. They gritted their teeth and knelt down in front of the celestial dragons, placing their heads on the floor to avoid attracting the celestial dragons' attention. There are also a very small number of stubborn pirates who are unwilling to kneel down to the Tianlong people and quietly hide their bodies behind the seats. He also didn't dare to attract the attention of the Tianlong people. There is nothing that can be done about this, because once the Tianlong people are offended, the generals or CP0 of the Marine headquarters must be dispatched to protect them. Under such a threat, except for the Four Emperors pirate group, no one would dare to attack the Tianlong people. Under the leadership of Boyle, let the two Tianlong people also sit in the first row and a little to the left. Looking at it this way, there are 4 people sitting in the entire first row, 2 Tianlong people, Bai Yi and Smoker. And what's striking is that Bai Yi and Smoker don't seem to care about the arrival of the celestial dragons. He was still sitting on the same spot, looking extremely out of place compared to the pirates who were forced to kneel down and temporarily hide. When Esther Kirk saw Bai Yi and the two not kneeling, she raised her eyebrows and wanted to scold them. But the Processal Palace on the side noticed the identities of Bai Yi and Major General Marine, and Zhang Sheng said, "Let the auction start quickly, I want to add some slaves." Hearing the words of Maple Cecil Palace, Esther Kirk snorted dissatisfied and said nothing more. When Boyle saw this, disappointment flashed through his eyes. He originally thought that the Tianlong people might conflict with Bai Yi. But no one thought that a word from Maple Cecil Palace would make Esther Kirk give up the idea. This disappointed many pirates who were waiting to see the joke between Byakuya and the two. But some pirates also began to wonder why Bai Yi and the two had such confidence and dared not to take the Tianlong people seriously. Esther Kirk was a little unhappy, but she didn't dare to express it in front of Maple Cecil Palace, so she could only say impatiently, "Let the auction start quickly." "As you command, Lord Esther Kirk." Although the Tianlong people all have their eyes high, they are not all brainless idiots. If everyone is as stupid as shown in the anime, how can they control the world government and become the gods of the sea? Maple Cecil Palace is obviously one of the smarter ones among the celestial dragons. Although she didn't know the identities of Bai Yi and others, she saw that Bai Yi was so young and had already become a major general of the Marine headquarters. And he dared to show such a blind attitude towards their arrival. This made her think a little more about Bai Yi. Usually, when general-level Marines meet a celestial dragon, most of them will not kneel down to the celestial dragon, but will show respect in their attitude. What's more, Marine is the strongest armed group in the hands of the world government, and they occasionally need Marines' protection when traveling. Maple Cecil Palace felt that there was no need to sour the relationship with Marine over some trivial matter. At the urging of the Tianlong people, the auction began soon. As mentioned before, the items in this auction are basically slaves, with the occasional devil fruit appearing. Both are among the most popular items at auction. Like Tianlong and nobles from various countries, they mainly buy slaves. The target of pirates and bounty hunters is devil fruit. After all, devil fruit's improvement in strength is earth-shaking. As the auction began, each slave was pushed onto the auction stage and displayed to everyone. The beautiful princess of the subjugated country was forced to wear hot and revealing clothes, showing off her moving curves on the stage. This caused countless nobles below, who were like fat pigs, to rush to make offers. The defeated and captured general, with his strong muscles and special temperament accumulated over many years of bloody battles, also attracted the attention of many rich women. The pirate captain with a bounty of 30 million belly was once an arrogant and domineering man who did bad things. Now his eyes are as dim as gray and his face shows the will to die. He is being picked around like an object. As for relatively ordinary slaves, there were countless of them. Most of them were citizens of the destroyed country and were captured and sold by the victorious country. Similarly, it cannot be ruled out that a large number of people were secretly captured by people who specialized in slave hunting. They completely lost their normal life, stayed away from their relatives, and became slaves at the bottom of the sea. The celestial dragons don't seem to have much interest in normal humans, but are very interested in other races. Almost all the small human clan, Long Hand clan, and Mermaid clan were bought by 2 Tianlong people. Especially when the auction director launched the finale slave, the slave of the giant clan. Bai Yi finally saw what it means to not regard money as money. He directly said 500 million Baileys, scaring other people who had some ideas from speaking. Think about it, Tianlong people collect heavenly gold from more than 200 franchised countries every year. The amount of gold in the sky at one time is several billion belly, not counting those rare treasures, devil fruits and the like. Even devil fruits can be fed to slaves at will. To them, this money may not even be considered money. This made Bai Yi a little tempted. Good guy, I enforce the rules on the Sabayati Islands just to make a lot of money. For this reason, I did not hesitate to be despised by others for several days, just to make a big profit at once. But the money Bai Yi wants to make, in front of the Tianlong people, is probably just money for going out to purchase goods. Gee, it's so irritating that people are so different from each other. At the auction, a Paramesha devil fruit also appeared, but Boyle did not reveal the specific information about the devil fruit. Instead, it was auctioned at a low price of 100 million belly. Thinking about it, Doflamingo is not stupid. If this fruit is a powerful fruit, he will definitely give it to his loyal subordinates to eat. How could it be put up for auction? But even without knowing the information about the fruit, it was still snatched by many pirates, and was eventually sold for a high price of 230 million belly. Seeing that the auction was coming to an end, Bai Yi went out for a trip. Although Bai Yi's actions attracted some people's attention, they didn't pay much attention as Bai Yi came back 3 minutes later. After Boyle auctioned off the last item, the auction ended successfully, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After all, there are 2 celestial dragons here, and they are afraid that their poor performance will cause dissatisfaction among the celestial dragons. Now it seems that the auction has finally ended successfully. Boyle came to the palace of Esther Kirksaint and Maple Cecil, knelt down and said respectfully, I will send the slaves bought by you 2 adults to Marie Joa immediately. Esther Kirk said excitedly, you don't need to send me away. You can just pull the slave over now. I will ride the giant back. The giant slave that just appeared was bought by Esther Kirksaint for 500 million belly. Hearing this, the face of the Longhand clan slave standing not far behind Esther Kirk showed a trace of despair. When the Tianlong people want to change their mounts, it means that their previous mounts have no value. And their end is usually death. Sure enough, as he expected, when Esther Kirk was riding on the giant slave who was 50 or 60 meters tall, he took out a gem-encrusted gun made of gold from his arms and pointed it at him. Bang! A golden bullet shot into his forehead. Before he died, there seemed to be sadness and a hint of relief in his eyes. But before he died, he didn't make any resistance. Even though he knew that he would definitely die, he still did not resist. Even if he is rescued like this, he may not be able to return to his appearance before becoming a slave. Bai Yi looked at the scene happening in front of him and felt emotional. This is a world where people eat people. When Bai Yi stood up and was about to leave, Boyle seemed to have been watching Bai Yi, walked closer and said, Major General Bai Yi, are you ready to leave now? Bai Yi looked at Boyle playfully, what? You still want to keep me here? Don't dare, don't you say that slave trading needs to be reported to Marine. I was busy before, so I forgot about it. Now that the auction is over, I finally have time to go to Marine to register. However, do you think we still need to report it? Boyle straightened up and looked at Bai Yi, as if he didn't care about Major General Bai Yi's identity at all. Smoker on the side had already held 10 hands in his hands, veins popped out on the back of his hands, and said angrily, do you want to die? Boyle's words can be considered a serious provocation. Just because the slaves have been sold to the celestial dragons, even if a report is made, what can Marine do? Is it possible to go to the Tianlong people to ask for someone? Bai Yi stopped Smoker who was about to take action, and suddenly a gentle smile appeared on his face, saying, since the auction is over, there is no need to report. Just don't forget it next time. Quote, Smoker didn't expect that Bai Yi would actually say something a little soft, so he looked back in confusion. When he saw the gentle smile on Bai Yi's face, he instantly shuddered. Why is this smile so familiar? Every time Bai Yi smiles at people like this, someone will die. There is never an exception, which means. Smoker probably guessed that Bai Yi had his own plan, so he put away his 10 hands and retreated behind Bai Yi. When Boyle heard Bai Yi's words and saw Smoker put away his weapon, his confidence increased greatly. Don't worry, Major General Bai Yi. As long as the next auction is not busy, I will definitely report it to Marine. Reporting is nothing. Lousy is always busy. Bai Yi once again showed a harmless smile, turned around and left without saying a word. Sometimes being killed directly may be a relatively happy thing. Smoker, on the other hand, looked at Boyle with a look of pity, which made Boyle feel chilled inexplicably. But thinking about how proud he was in front of the 2 Marine Major Generals, an indescribable pride filled his heart. When Bai Yi and Smoker left the auction house and prepared to return to the Marine base, several pirate groups participating in the auction followed them and surrounded them. Bai Yi said to Smoker, there seem to be a few people who are not afraid of death. I'll leave it to you to deal with them later. Well, I've been suffocated to death during this period. Finally, a few pirate groups came up to give me some practice. Smoker said with great anticipation, I hope they won't die too quickly, so that I can have fun. Quote. Bai Yi had an inexplicable smile on his lips and said softly, don't worry, after a good show is over, it's time to close the net. You will be busy then. On the other side of the street, Esther Kirksaint and Maple Cecil Palace were riding on giants and strolling leisurely on the street. Thousands of civilians knelt down on both sides of the street. Everyone lowered their heads for fear of being seen by the Tianlong people. Because the Tianlong people can deprive them of their lives and their originally happy life with just one word. Esther Kirk was riding on the giant, looking extremely excited. Giant slaves are also extremely rare in the sea. I am lucky to be able to buy them this time. And because the giant is too tall, the view from riding on the giant is also very good, which Esther Kirksaint enjoys very much. The nearby Maple Cecil Palace did not seem to be in as good a mood as Esther Kirkstreet. Maybe it was because a woman's intuition was always sharper, but she suddenly felt like she was being watched by Lion Majesty, which made her feel palpitations. It seems like something bad will happen later. But I don't know where this feeling comes from. Maple Cecil Palace frowned and said, Esther Kirk, please stop wandering outside. I feel a little bad, so I'd better go back early. Esther Kirk was in high spirits at this time and wanted to ride the giant slave for a few more turns. But Maple Cecil Palace's status among the celestial dragons was much higher than him, and he did not dare to go against Maple Cecil Palace's opinion. Are you feeling unwell? In that case, let's go back first. The Sacred Heart of Esther Kirk was dissatisfied, but she did not dare to show it in front of Maple Cecil Palace. He had no choice but to vent his anger on the slave, took out something similar to a remote control, and pressed the button on it. Small thorns sprouted from the collar around the neck of the giant slave, and there were poisons developed by slave traders on them. When exposed to blood, it would cause excruciating pain, but it would not be fatal. The giant slave's face suddenly turned as red as pig liver, his body began to tremble, and his expression was extremely painful. One hand seemed to want to take off the collar around his neck, but when it was about to reach the collar, the hand suddenly stopped. Because if the collar was removed by force, the collar would explode in an instant, and the explosion would be powerful enough to break his neck and separate his body. Esther Kirkstreet looked at the giant's painful reaction, seemed to have discovered other ways of playing the giant, and pressed several other buttons. I saw the body of the giant slave shaking non-stop, and the shaking amplitude became larger and larger. As a result, the Esther Kirkstreet and Maple Cecil Palace that were riding on her began to shake with the shaking, and they almost fell off the giant. At this moment, 4 purple figures suddenly emerged from the crowd, heading towards Esther Kirksaint and Maple Cecil Palace at extremely fast speeds. The bodyguards responsible for protecting the Tianlong people were shocked if something happened to the Tianlong people under their protection. Even if they don't die at the hands of the enemy, they will be executed after they return. And their family members living in Mariajoya will also suffer the same fate. More than a dozen bodyguards stood in front of the Tianlong people, trying to stop the purple figure. I saw 4 figures throwing shurikens at the same time. When the bodyguards came into contact with the shurikens, their faces instantly turned pale. Where is this shuriken? What a bomb! Bang, 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 bang. 4 explosions sounded loudly in a row, and the hot flames swallowed up the bodyguards and the celestial dragons. The sound of the explosion resounded through the streets. When the countless civilians kneeling on the ground saw the explosion, they were so nervous that it seemed as if their hearts had exploded. A terrifying thought appeared in their minds: someone was attacking and killing the celestial dragons in the street. It's over. The world is going to explode. At this moment, no civilians were still kneeling on the spot. They all fled in all directions, and the entire island was in panic. Bai Yi and Smoker, who were on the other side of the street, heard the explosion over there and immediately realized that something was wrong with the Tianlong people. If something happens to the Tianlong people in the place under their jurisdiction, their responsibility is not small. Just when Smoker was about to turn into smoke and rush over, the sound of Bai Yi rang in his ears. You take care of the pirates following us and leave it to me. Bai Yi's figure flashed and appeared in the air. Looking at the exploding flames, he chuckled and said, let's start. The 3 pirate groups who were following him saw Bai Yi suddenly disappear from their eyes, leaving only Smoker. Immediately I began to worry that Marine had discovered him. If Byakuya goes back to gather Marine, they won't have the numerical advantage. If it causes chaos and attracts the attention of Marine headquarters, the situation will be even worse. The 3 pirate captains discussed in a low voice, why don't we take action now and kill everyone? I also think it is safer to strike first. Killing a major general from Marine headquarters is enough to prove our strength. Now that you've decided, let's go. The 3 pirate captains hit it off immediately and immediately ordered their men to take action. The next moment, more than 80 pirates suddenly appeared in the shops around Smoker, holding guns and firing at Smoker at the same time. The sudden sound of gunshots caused all the pedestrians on the street to duck aside, for fear of implicating themselves. When they saw that the person being ambushed was Major General Marine, many people not only did not leave, but were interested in seeing how Major General Marine was killed by others. Even the pirates among the pedestrians wanted to participate. The lone Major General Marine was considered a piece of cake in their eyes. Even if you don't kill it yourself, as long as you are a participant, it is enough to become a topic of conversation after dinner. When the bullet was about to pass through Smoker's body, the pirate's eyes flashed with excitement. Unexpectedly, things went so smoothly. Major General Marine was shot dead on the spot without any reaction. It's a pity that one escaped, otherwise killing 2 Marine Major Generals would have been enough to double their bounty. The pirates who were watching were excited but also a little disappointed. If they had known that Major General Marine was so weak, they would have taken action long ago. Where is the turn of these 3 pirate groups? Countless bullets passed through Smoker's body from behind, and then passed out from the front at extremely fast speeds, knocking down a dozen unlucky guys in front of him who were watching the fun. A huge hole was made in Smoker's waist and abdomen by the bullet. Through the hole, one could even see the horrified expressions of the onlookers. Then the hole returned to normal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Smoker turned around and showed a bright smile. During this time with Bai Yi, he was somewhat assimilated by Bai Yi. The captains of the 3 pirate groups were shocked when they saw this. Even a fool knew that the Marine Major General in front of him was probably a Logia Devil Fruit user. In the first half of the Grand Line, which is not domineering, Logia Devil Fruit users represent invincibility. Smoker smiled ferociously and said, since you have taken action, then no one can leave. He could hardly hold it in any longer during this period, and it was hard for someone to take the initiative today. Be sure to completely release your own stress. As Smoker thought, his entire body turned into a huge smoke, completely covering the surrounding streets for nearly 100 meters. In addition to the 3 pirate groups who took action, the surrounding pirates who were watching the excitement were all wrapped in smoke. The smoke density was very high and the visibility was extremely low. Even if the distance between the 2 people was only half a meter, they could not see each other clearly. Smoker was as comfortable as a fish swimming in the sea in the smoke. He could only see a figure moving back and forth in the smoke at an extremely fast speed. The screams of pirates kept ringing in the smoke, but no one could be seen rushing out of the smoke. The whole street seemed to be filled with only lamentations made of painful wails. On the other side of the street, wait until the smoke from the explosion caused by the shuriken dissipates. You can see more than a dozen bodyguards forming a human wall, tightly protecting the two panicked Tianlong people. Because the explosion was too close, several bodyguards on the outermost periphery had already been killed. 4 purple figures suddenly disappeared, and a man wearing a purple ninja uniform stood at the back of the giant's head, holding a short sword and walking towards the Tianlong people step by step. The bodyguard threatened sternly, "Who are you? Don't you know that if you attack the celestial dragons, you will be hunted down by General Marine and the CP organization?" Esther Kirk Saint, who was on the side, said angrily, "Give them all to me and kill him. How dare he attack the great god? I must take him back as a slave and torture him every day." After saying that, Esther Kirk took out a delicate pistol from her arms, raised her hand and shot the purple-clothed ninja. But in the astonished eyes of everyone, the purple-clothed ninja just tilted his head slightly and dodged the shot. This aroused Esther Kirk's panic even more, and she shouted loudly, "Get them all! Why are you still standing here? Do you want to die?" Seeing that the bodyguard in front of her was cowering, Esther Kirk became so angry that she took a gun and shot the bodyguard in front of her in the head. When would a bodyguard have thought that the employer he was protecting would actually take action against him, and without any precautions, his head would be shot directly through. Scarlet blood splashed onto the faces of the people around her, and the smell of blood became stronger and stronger, stimulating Esther Kirk's already tense nerves. "Go and catch that guy. If you don't, I will make all your family slaves." The remaining 10 bodyguards saw Esther Kirk Shungdu talking about this, and for the sake of their family, they had no choice but to rush towards the purple-clothed ninja in despair. Maple Cecil Palace frowned and glanced at Esther Kirk with dissatisfaction, but saw that Esther Kirk's eyes were red and her whole body was trembling, as if she was going crazy. He could only sigh lightly and said nothing more. "I still don't know if I can get through this difficult time." When the purple-clothed ninja faced 10 bodyguards who were not afraid of death, his steps stagnated slightly. With the short sword in his hand, he suddenly rushed forward towards the bodyguards. Accompanied by the ear-piercing sonic boom, the purple figure flashed past the bodyguard and appeared in front of Esther Kirk. The next moment, the 10 bodyguards stood in place as if they had been cast a restraining spell. Rub. As the purple-clothed ninja's short sword was sheathed, a trail of blood appeared on the necks of the 10 bodyguards, and gradually extended to both sides. Their bodies fell straight down, already cold. Esther Kirk looked at the masked assassin in purple in front of her, and then at the miserable state of her bodyguards. They were no longer as arrogant as before. The whole person was slumped on the seat like a puddle of mud, his eyes were dull, and he kept shouting, "You can't kill me! You can't kill me! You can't kill me!" Although Maple Cecil Palace is a woman, she behaves much calmer than Esther Kirk. Killing the celestial dragon will lead to the pursuit of General Marine, which is not a good thing for you. You can tell me what you want, and I will do my best to satisfy you. Hearing a sneer from the mask, Maple Cecil Palace's vision went dark and he lost consciousness. When Bai Yi arrived at the scene was in a mess, with more than a dozen bodyguards lying miserably on top of the giant body. During the White Night, I happened to see the scene of Maple Cecil Palace being knocked unconscious. Esther Kirk Saint was trembling. After seeing Maple Cecil Palace being knocked unconscious, she screamed in fright. At this time, he was already in despair. He hurriedly crawled backwards, desperately trying to get further away from the purple-clothed ninja. Just when Esther Kirk was about to despair, she suddenly saw Bai Yi coming from the side and shouted loudly, "That Major General Marine, come and save me. If you save me, I can grant you whatever you want." Perhaps because she has seen too much life and death, Esther Kirk is no longer as arrogant as before. He didn't dare to speak to Bai Yi in a commanding tone. The purple-clothed ninja also noticed Bai Yi's arrival and rushed towards Esther Kirk at a faster speed, hoping to kill Esther Kirk before Bai Yi arrived. Esther Kirk looked at the dagger getting closer and closer to her, and closed her eyes in despair. The next moment, the sound of weapons clashing suddenly sounded in his ears. Ding! Esther Kirk opened his eyes and saw a scene that made him extremely relieved. Bai Yi stood in front of him with a sword. Perhaps seeing Bai Yi's ability to fight against the purple-clad ninja, Esther Kirksant suddenly felt confident again. The joy of surviving the disaster made Esther Kirk Saint ecstatic, Quick, you must capture him and make him my slave, I will torture him to death. Hearing this, Bai Yi couldn't help but frown, and ignored Esther Kirk's words. Seeing Bai Yi's presence, the purple-clad ninja seemed unable to kill Esther Kirk. And now 10 minutes have passed since the attack started, and the Marine General will arrive in 20 minutes at most. It will be difficult to escape by then. The purple-clothed ninja made up his mind, moved his body, and formed 10 afterimages in the air at an extremely fast speed, performing the same movements as if they were real people. They threw shurikens at Bai Yi together, and 20 shurikens pierced the air and attacked Bai Yi. Bai Yi waved Feng Ming in his hand, and a light blue slash nearly 100 meters in size appeared out of thin air, exuding endless sharpness. Bang, 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 bang. The 20 shuriken exploded immediately upon contact with the slash, and their power directly formed a large mushroom cloud. Very conspicuous in the sky. Bai Yi reluctantly protected Esther Kirk behind him. When the explosion flames dissipated, the figure of the purple-clothed ninja was nowhere to be seen. When Bai Yi looked up at the sky, he saw that the purple-clothed ninja had escaped and had taken away the unconscious Maple Cecil Palace. Esther Kirk looked at the purple figure getting smaller and smaller in the sky, and said angrily, "You are a waste. You actually let him go." A cold light flashed in Bai Yi's eyes, and Feng Ming swung towards Esther Kirk. Like a crescent moon, the slash instantly passed through the side of Esther Kirk's face, and red blood flowed down. The slash shot straight into the sky, splitting the white clouds in the sky into two. Bai Yi pointed his sword at Esther Kirk and said coldly, "If you insist on seeking death, I can give you a ride without being a Marine." Listening to Bai Yi's words full of murderous intent, and then looking at Bai Yi's eyes without any emotion, Esther Kirk swallowed hard, lowered her proud head, and said no more. Because he knew that the Marine in front of him really dared to kill him. Not long after, Smoker rushed here after finishing all the pirates over there. Smoker couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Esther Kirk standing aside with her head lowered. Just stay alive. As long as the Tianlong people are alive, anything can be said. But when he looked again, the female Tianlong from before was nowhere to be seen. Bai Yi said, "The Maple Cecil Palace was taken away by the attackers." What? Smoker lost his voice. The Tianlong people were actually kidnapped. Moreover, they were robbed in front of Bai Yi, which means that the attacker should have the strength of a general. The impact of this incident is really too great. Smoker asked, "Can you identify the attacker?" There are basically only a handful of general-level combatants on the sea, and most of those who have fought against them can recognize their identity. Bai Yi shook his head, "I'm not sure yet, it shouldn't be those powerful people who have become famous." A new strong man. Smoker was lost in thought. Things were getting more and more troublesome now. Bai Yi continued, "Smoker notified all marine branches in the Sabayati Islands to send soldiers to block the ports and not allow anyone to leave. If anyone insists on leaving, they will be killed directly as if they were murdering the celestial dragons." Quote, "Yeah, I'll make arrangements right away." Smoker knew how bad this was. Fortunately, the current situation is that one celestial dragon is alive and the other celestial dragon has been kidnapped. If 2 Tianlong people died in the Sabayati Islands, not only would he and Bai Yi be held responsible, but even the warring state's fleet admiral might not be in good stead. At this time, news of the attack by the Draco on the Sabayati Islands reached Mary Joa in Malinfando. After learning the news, Marie Joa directly sent agents of CP0 Feet to the Sabayati Islands to protect the celestial dragons. After warring states learned that the Tianlong people were attacked, he almost fainted and was so angry that he almost smashed the table. It's a pity that Kizaru is not here, otherwise with Kizaru's fruit ability, he would definitely be able to arrive faster. So, he quickly asked the soldiers to tell the news to Aokiji, the only one who was unemployed at the headquarters, and asked Aokiji to quickly go to the Sabayati Islands for support. After Aokiji heard the news, he also realized the seriousness of the matter and set out directly for the Sabayati Islands. After arranging everything properly, warring states rubbed his forehead and thought with some pain. Who dares to attack the celestial dragons in the Sabayati Islands? By the way, isn't that guy Bai Yi stationed at the Sabayati Islands? With his strength, how could such a big mistake happen? Although warring states did not suspect that Bai Yi had done anything to the Tianlong people, he still felt that something was not quite right. So I called Bai Yi and wanted to inquire about the situation. When Bai Yi informed Warring States about the situation here, Warring States finally breathed a sigh of relief. Things haven't come to their worst yet. At least both of them were alive, but one was in the hands of the attacker. The Warring States period was also quite satisfied with Bai Yi's arrangement. He sealed off the island immediately to prevent the attackers from getting out with the people leaving the island. This can greatly improve the hope of finding the revolving heaven dragon. After telling Byakuya that Aokiji was on his way, Sengoku hung up the phone. Regarding Bai Yi's ability, Sengguo was relatively reassured. The only thing he doesn't understand now is, who is this new strong man from? Byakuya hung up Sengoku's phone and learned that Aokiji was on the way. I am ready to wait here and have no intention of leaving. At this time, the two of them were surrounded by a fainted giant and surrounded by dead bodyguards. All the slaves purchased by Esther Kirk were kneeling on the roadside, shivering, and did not take advantage of the chaos to escape. There was no one on both sides of the street, for fear that they would be implicated later. Esther Kirk looked at the taciturn Bai Yi in front of her. The command she wanted to say came to her lips, but she could only swallow it back. He wanted to leave this hellish place, return to his comfortable palace, take a hot bath, and kill a few slaves to relieve the depressed mood today. But he didn't have the courage to say it, because the faintly painful wound on his face reminded him that the man in front of him might really dare to kill him. At this time, Bai Yi was thinking about how the subsequent plot should develop. What role should he play in it? That's right, the previous attack on the celestial dragons was controlled by Shiro Yoruichi. When he met the Tianlong people at the auction, an idea suddenly popped into Bai Yi's mind. Since Doflamingo wants to use the celestial dragons to put pressure on him, he can also use the celestial dragons to achieve his own goals. By attacking the celestial dragons, martial law was imposed on the entire island, and through the dual power of the world government and marine headquarters, the forces of the Sabayati Islands were reshuffled. Let the 5 rules he promulgated before be officially implemented. Likewise, anyone who breaks the rules these days will be arrested and killed. With the banner of searching for the attacker, Bai Yi didn't think any force dared to stop him at this time. At that time, it will not be up to him to decide whether those people are suspicious. After all, he was the only person who had fought against the attacker, the purple ninja, and was still alive. As for the purple-clothed ninja just now, Bai Yi redeemed it from the system store while leaving the auction. Orphan Ninja, Sonic, redemption requires world source power, 1000 points. When Bai Yi redeemed it, he briefly tested Sonic's strength, which was probably at the level of Lieutenant General Marine. Although he doesn't have 3 colors of hockey, Grandmaster is mostly ninjutsu and has many tricks, so he can be considered a good helper. The price is quite reasonable. 1000 points of world source power is roughly equivalent to the cost of Bai Yi to increase his integration level by a little. Moreover, Bai Yi also discovered that he could use the system to spend world energy to improve Sonic's strength. Bai Yi took a quick look and found that it would take about 5000 points of world source power to raise Sonic's strength to the weakest general level. This look immediately made Bai Yi give up. Anyway, no one will fight Sonic head-on except him. He said that Sonic has the strength of a general, and no one else can find Sonic to prove it. Anyway, these people all saw the scene where Sonic took the Maple Cecil Palace hostage and escaped after fighting with him. No one would doubt Bai Yi because of this little thing. What's more, Bai Yi also rescued a celestial dragon from Sonic. This is also one of the preparatory means for Bai Yi to prove his innocence. Now that things have reached this point, no one knows Sonic's true identity. Bai Yi has a lot more room to play. After thinking about it, Bai Yi took out a half-palm-sized piece of cloth from his arms, with a round black smiley face printed on it, and a slash from the upper right to the lower left in the middle. It was the strip of cloth with the Don Quixote family logo that Leslie had given him. Bai Yi casually placed the strip of cloth under the dead bodyguard in a place where it was not easy to find. Naturally, the discoverer cannot be Bai Yi himself, as he will not bring any suspicion to himself. It wouldn't matter to him whether he was discovered or not. It would be great to be discovered, maybe it would give the Don Quixote family a slap in the face. Even if no one discovered it, or if the celestial dragons didn't believe that it was the Don Quixote family that did it, it wouldn't be a loss to him at all. This is considered an unintentional move. With the strength of General Aokiji, if he came with all his strength, Bai Yi would not be kept waiting for too long. When Aokiji was moving in the air, he took a step, and ice blocks suddenly appeared under his feet, allowing him to relay an alternate. This can be regarded as the ability he developed to use the fruit to fly half. At least it's much less labor-intensive than using moonwalk continuously. Seeing Aokiji arrive, Byakuya stood up and said, "General Aokiji, you are finally here." Aokiji looked around first, and then said solemnly, "Byakuya, what on earth is going on?" Warring States simply introduced the situation on the phone without going into details. After Bai Yi explained the situation, Aokiji nodded approvingly, showing that he admired Bai Yi very much. After all, both of them are Zepha's apprentices, coming from the same sect. Aokiji has also seen Bai Yi's strength and feels that if nothing unexpected happens to Bai Yi, he will definitely grow into a general-level combat force within 3 years. Therefore, his attitude towards Bai Yi is also relatively kind, and he doesn't have the feeling of being overpowered by a high-ranking official. "You did a good job. The person who kidnapped Maple Cecil Palace will not kill her immediately, so we must take advantage of this time to find the person." Bai Yesha nodded thoughtfully and thought to himself, "You'd be killed if you could find it out." After Aokiji finished speaking, he glanced at Esther Kirksane not far away, with a trace of imperceptible disgust in his eyes. If he hadn't been the only general in the Marine headquarters, he wouldn't have wanted to get involved in matters involving the celestial dragons. Because the existence of Tianlong people is the greatest insult to the justice he insists on. But now he could only forcefully suppress the disgust in his heart. If he had to make contact, he could hide as far as he could. Bai Yi looked at the slave who was still kneeling below, walked to Esther Kirk, and said coldly, "Give me the manipulators that control these slaves. They are also witnesses to this attack. I need to take them back to the Marine base for questioning." Aokiji was shocked when he saw Byakuya dared to ask Tianlong for someone, and his tone was still so rude. If the Tianlong people were angry, I'm afraid Bai Yi wouldn't have an easy time either. Just about to open his mouth to dissuade. But what surprised Aokiji was that after hearing Bai Yi's words, the celestial dragon who thought he would be angry, instead of getting angry, looked cautiously in his direction. Aokiji, on the other hand, was too lazy to pay attention to the Tianlong people and simply turned his head and pretended not to notice. Esther Kirk found that Aokiji was not paying attention to him at all, and she was a little unwilling to say, "I spent a lot of money to buy these slaves." Bai Yi used his thumb to push Feng Ming out half an inch. The crisp sound of the sword made Esther Kirk feel that the wound on her face began to hurt again. "Forget it, these slaves are gone once they are gone, and they are not worth much." Esther Kirk gritted her teeth and took out a dozen manipulators and handed them to Bai Yi. Bai Yi took over the manipulator that controlled the slave, leaving the giant's manipulator behind. He didn't even look at the others and threw them all to the slaves below. "Take your controller and go to the branch base to wait for questioning. The entire island is now closed, and all exits are guarded by Marines. Don't try to take advantage of this opportunity to escape, because it is impossible. If you are caught trying to leave the island, you will be charged with murdering the celestial dragon." More than a dozen slaves were choosing their own manipulators. I don't know whether they knelt for too long or were too excited. The hands holding the manipulators couldn't stop shaking. Then he looked at Bai Yi, who was standing on the giant body, with a complicated expression and indescribable gratitude in his heart. "I thought that after being bought by the Tianlong people, I would not be able to escape the fate of death in the future. But I didn't expect that there would be a chance to escape from the Tianlong people now." Although the Major General Marine only said that they should go to the branch base for questioning, he did not say that he would let them go. But this is 10,000 times better than following the celestial dragons back to Marijoa and waiting to die. Moreover, Bai Yi's last words seemed to be a warning not to let them escape, but in fact they were hinting to them that the exit of the pier was now guarded by Marine, so it was not a good time to escape. The meaning of these words can basically be understood by individuals, except of course Esther Kirk. After all, the celestial dragons are gods, not humans. After the 14 slaves took the remote control, they walked towards the branch base silently without anyone watching. It's not like they haven't thought about getting the manipulator, untying the slave's collar, and taking advantage of this golden opportunity to escape. But at this moment, they all chose to believe Bai Yi's words. Giving up this may be their only chance to escape in this life. Maybe it was the moment when Bai Yi's sword pointed at the Tianlong people that made them believe that Bai Yi might be their savior. That's why I made this choice. Aokiji looked at the slaves walking towards the branch base with some surprise. They didn't actually escape. Did they choose to believe in Bai Yi and give up their escape? In fact, Aokiji understood Bai Yi's thoughts when he asked Esther Kirk for the controller. Bai Yi wants to save these slaves. For this reason, he even risked being severely punished by drawing his sword against the celestial dragons and forcing the celestial dragons to hand over the controller. Aokiji once wanted to do this kind of thing, but he didn't have the same courage as Shiro Yoruichi. He thought too much and considered too much, so he chose, like Garp, not to have any contact with the celestial dragons. Out of sight, out of mind. But Bai Yi's behavior taught him a new lesson. Aokiji narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at Bai Yi, who looked indifferent, and thought to himself. My little junior brother must not be simple. Mariajoya is not far from the Sabayati Islands, and the CP organization is 10 minutes slower than Aokiji. The visitors were wearing white suits uniformly worn by the CP organization and wearing various masks. There were 7 of them in total. The leader is a man wearing a sun god mask. He is nearly 3 meters tall and looks very oppressive. They didn't pay attention to Aokiji and Byakuya when they arrived, but surrounded Esther Kirk. The man in the sun mask asked respectfully, Esther Kirk, are you okay? I'm okay. After Esther Kirk Street saw the arrival of the CP organization, her anxious heart finally returned to her stomach. Unlike Marine, the purpose of the CP organization's existence, in addition to performing various special tasks of the government, is to protect the world noble Draco people from harm. Therefore, the two have relatively more frequent contact. Compared with Marine, the Tianlong people trust the people in the CP organization more. Seeing one of my own coming, Esther Kirk wanted to tell Bai Yi about threatening him. But when the words came to his lips, he suddenly remembered Bai Yi's stern eyes and the slash that cut away the white clouds, and couldn't help but shudder. Forget it, one more thing is worse than one less thing. The worst thing is, I won't leave Marigio again. Esther Kirk is scared. After confirming the safety of Esther Kirk, the man in the sun god mask walked towards Bai Yi and the other two. General Aokiji, I am a special member of CP0. You can call me 09. Member of CP0. The superior of CP1 CP9, the world's top powerhouse known as the strongest shield of the celestial dragons, whose main responsibility is to protect the celestial dragons. Like the CP organization that Bai Yi met before to protect Harris, they should be members of 1 to 9. His strength is good enough to deal with ordinary pirates, but not enough in front of Byakuya. But the Lingju in front of him seemed to be much stronger. Although it is impossible to determine the overall strength without fighting, Bai Yi guesses that his strength should be around the Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General. And such a person occupies the 9th place in CP0, and there are actually 8 people better than him. It seems that the strongest shield of the celestial dragons is really unfathomable. But you can understand this if you think about it. The Tianlong people hold the most wealth and the greatest power in the world. Over the years, the celestial dragons have collected countless devil fruits, selected powerful devil fruits, and given them to their loyal subordinates so that they can protect themselves. It is normal for generations to develop extremely powerful subordinates. Even if the Lingju that appeared in front of him was a general with strength, Bai Yi could understand it. Anyway, the general level is basically your peak, and my peak is the stars and the sea, there is no comparison at all. After Lingju understood the general situation, he asked Bai Yi in a dissatisfied tone, why didn't you chase the attackers and try to rescue the Maple Cecil Palace? In 09's opinion, Maple Cecil Palace's status among the celestial dragons is higher than that of Esther Kirk Saint. He would rather Esther Kirk was kidnapped than this outcome. Hearing Ling Ju's questioning words, Bai Yi said angrily, don't you have any brains? I'm going to chase the attacker. What if Esther Kirk Saint is attacked again? You will be responsible then. When Ling Ju said this to Bai Yi, the good cultivation he had developed over the years almost broke down. He didn't expect that a young Major General Marine would dare to speak to him in such a tone. But he can't say to his face that Maple Cecil Palace is more important than Esther Kirk Saint, can he? Esther Kirk, who was on the side, felt as if she had eaten honey when she heard this. She didn't expect that Major General Marine was going too far, but she still cared about her own safety. Most of Bai Yi's resentment was instantly resolved. On the contrary, Ling Ju, who was supposed to protect himself, was more concerned about the safety of Maple Cecil Palace, which had a higher status than him. Marine doesn't understand this, because they don't know that there are differences between the celestial dragons. But Esther Kirk knew it very well, so she couldn't help but feel a little more resentful towards 09. If Bai Yi could know what Ling Ju and Esther Kirk were thinking, they would probably be able to laugh it off. Why don't I pursue it? Since I sent the attacker, how do you want me to pursue him? Moreover, Bai Yi did not expect that there was a status gap between Esther Kirk Saint and Maple Cecil Palace. When he ordered Sonic to kidnap Maple Cecil Palace, it was not because she was a female and good-looking that he became lustful. He is not an LSP. Simply because Maple Cecil Palace seems smarter and Esther Kirk is easier to deceive. In order to facilitate the implementation of the plan, the smart ones must be knocked unconscious, leaving only one easy to deceive. Unexpectedly, this original idea would actually yield unexpected results now. Ling Ju was rebuked by Bai Yi, which made him very unhappy, but he couldn't tell the truth to his face. There are only other ways to deal with the little Marine Major General in front of him. 09 then said sternly, this time the Maple Cecil Palace was looted in the area under your Marine's jurisdiction. You Marine must bear most of the responsibility. Seeing that Reiju wanted to blame Byakuya for the incident, Aokiji stood in front of Byakuya and said dissatisfiedly, guarding the safety of the celestial dragons doesn't seem to be our Marine's main responsibility, right? This time when the celestial dragons arrived, they did not notify Marine for protection. Moreover, the people responsible for protecting Esther Kirk Saint and Maple Cecil Palace were all organized by your CP, and they all died at the hands of the attackers. If Bai Yi hadn't appeared in time and rescued Esther Kirk from the attacker, the situation would have been even worse. I haven't blamed you for your poor protection, and now you actually want to pass the responsibility on to Marine. Bai Yi looked at Aokiji standing in front of him with some surprise. In fact, even if Aokiji didn't say these words, he would have other ways to escape responsibility. After all, it is an indisputable fact that he saved Esther Kirk Saint. Unexpectedly, Aokiji, who has always been unwilling to get into trouble, actually started to fight with people from the CP0 organization in order to protect him. This was something Bai Yi didn't expect at all. But then, something even more unexpected happened for Bai Yi. Esther Kirk Saint, who was on the side, suddenly said, if Major General Bai Yi hadn't arrived in time this time, I might have died in the hands of the attackers. I can survive this time, and I really have to thank Major General Bai Yi. Esther Kirk's words almost made Bai Yele's skin burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. What is going on? Bai Yi suddenly noticed that Esther Kirk's eyes looked at him, which was inexplicably more grateful and less resentful, and he suddenly felt puzzled. What does it mean? This Tianlong man was so frightened that he actually spoke for me and thanked me. Or is he just a fool who gets the pleasure of being slashed with a sword? Reiju had the confidence to hold Marine Major General Byakuya accountable, but when facing Marine General Aokiji, he was not confident enough. After all, Marine's highest combat power is not just something to talk about casually. A strong man like Aokiji must be given a certain amount of respect wherever he goes. In addition, Esther Kirk Saint said this. Ling Ju was even more speechless. Well, the master is thanking others, so he, a dog, can still bite his master's benefactor. Seeing that everyone who was supposed to come had arrived, Byakuya said to Aokiji, General Aokiji, shall we go back to the branch base now? Now that the dock on the island has just been sealed off, they still need to conduct a search, which will also take a lot of effort. Moreover, Bai Yi also needs to get rid of all the people who have been jumping these days at once. Aokiji nodded. He really didn't want to have contact with the celestial dragons and people from the CP organization. Bai Yi and Aokiji had just walked a few steps towards the branch base when Bai Yi seemed to suddenly think of something. He turned around and kicked the unconscious giant twice. How long are you going to keep pretending to be unconscious? I'm holding your manipulator. If you get too far away from me, it's not my fault if your head is blown to pieces. As soon as Bai Yi finished speaking, the giant who had been pretending to be a dead man for more than an hour suddenly started to move. As the giant mom moved, several remaining bodyguard corpses fell from his body. A half-palm-sized piece of cloth mixed with the bodyguard's corpse staggered down from the air, which was more eye-catching. Lingju stepped forward to catch the piece of cloth and looked at the logo on the piece of cloth. Lingju was stunned for a moment. Although they didn't have much contact with other forces on the sea, the Don Quixote family had always had contacts with the Tianlong people. How could they not recognize the sign on it? Aokiji also noticed something unusual about Lingju, glanced at the piece of cloth in his hand, and his pupils shrank. One of the Shichibukai, the Don Quixote family. Could it be that this madman Doflamingo did what happened this time? Without knowing the identity of the attacker, everyone could only rely on a large-scale search to recover Maple Cecil Palace. There is one thing to say, relying on this method, the hope is extremely slim. However, the appearance of this banner with the Don Quixote family banner undoubtedly pointed out a path for them that they had never considered. Although this road may not be feasible, it is still better than being like a headless fly now. However, because the Don Quixote family had a deal with the Celestial Dragons, 09 and Aokiji did not publicize the matter immediately. If the people on the sea knew that the Shichibukai who attacked the Tianlong people were recognized by the government, then the government and the Shichibukai would be completely embarrassed. The two looked at each other tacitly, and without receiving instructions from above, they could only investigate the matter secretly. When Bai Yi saw Aokiji and Lingju looking serious on the side, they pretended to be calm on the surface, but in fact they were almost laughing. Isn't this going too well? Not only did no one suspect Bai Yi, but they also connected the matter with the Don Quixote family. If only Doflamingo knew that he originally wanted to use the Celestial Dragon to suppress Byakuya. As a result, Bai Yi used the Tianlong people to put the shit basin on his head, and he was probably able to cry out in grievance. It's true that when people sit at home, disaster comes from heaven. When Bai Yi and Aokiji returned to the branch base, there were only 2 guards left at the entrance of the base, and the others were taken out by Smoker to block the exit. 14 slaves stood obediently at the door, waiting for the arrival of Bai Yi. Including the giant mom who followed Bai Yi, there were 15 slaves in total. This time, Bai Yi directly captured all the slaves purchased by Esther Kirk Sanctuary and those brought out. If Bai Yi were more shameless and auctioned these 15 slaves again, he would be able to earn at least 1 billion belly. This is a purely costless transaction. If Bai Yi was still a poor man before, he might actually be prepared to do this. But now, Bai Yi doesn't want to make such unconscionable money. There are 29 islands with pirates and unscrupulous merchants waiting for him to loot them. Are they afraid that they won't be able to extract 1 billion belly? The abduction of the Tianlong people caused huge waves in the Sabayati Islands. The Marine headquarters directly dispatched tens of thousands of Marine soldiers, led by Marine General Aokiji, to surround the Sabayati Islands 3 levels inside and 3 outside. Let alone people, I'm afraid not even a bird can fly out. Among those affected, the ones suffering the most are probably the pirates and underground people who happen to be on the island. These were pirates who had bounties on their heads and people who had hidden their identities because they had committed crimes. I have to face Marines' constant interrogation every day. I was afraid that one day my identity would be exposed and I would be taken away by Marine and imprisoned in Impel Down City. I live on tenterhooks every day, not to mention how miserable I am. In fact, it is not that Marine has not thought about using this opportunity to directly catch all the pirates on the Sabayati Islands. This will at least allow the first half of the Grand Line to stop for a while. But such behavior is likely to arouse the anger of the 4 Emperors pirate group. If there is a real war, it will be a troublesome matter for Marine. After all, the most important task now is to retrieve the abducted Maple Cecil Palace, and other things can be put aside for later. But for Bai Yi, finding Maple Cecil Palace was just a big deal. If he really wanted to find it, Bai Yi could just ask Sonic to send him back to Maple Cecil Palace. You can find shit in the Sabayati Islands. When Sonic kidnapped Maple Cecil Palace, he took the ship prepared at the port in the White Night and went to a remote desert island. That island was not on the record pointer. It was accidentally discovered by Bai Yi some days ago. Very safe. And with Sonic's strength, even if someone accidentally discovered the island, he would be able to deal with the discoverer. So Bai Yi didn't care at all about the search and rescue of Maple Cecil Palace. Just taking advantage of this period of ban, Bai Yi was able to use his previous ideas. Out of the trust of Aokiji and Sengoku, all the search work on islands 1 to 29 of the Sabayati archipelago was handed over to Byakuya. After all, the two of them know Bai Yi's strength relatively well and believe that Bai Yi can handle these things well. And Bai Yi also lived up to their trust. On the first day, he led a team and captured more than 200 people, including pirates, shady businessmen, and a small number of bounty hunters. These are the people who have been more active after Bai Yi promulgated the 5 rules. Some are hiding their sails, some are fighting on the street, and some are even attacking marine. Bai Yi asked people to record the things they had committed one by one, and no one was spared. During the arrest process, those who resisted were directly killed by Bai Yi at the arrest scene, regardless of what some people claimed were wrong. Bai Yi stood on the high platform, looking at the crowd of kneeling people below, feeling indescribable satisfaction in his heart. In Bai Yi's eyes, they represent Bailey and the source of the world. Among the people kneeling below was Bai Yi's old acquaintance, the owner of Doflamingo Auction House, Boyle. At this moment, Boyle still looks as arrogant as he did yesterday in front of Bai Yi and Smoker. Kneeling on the ground, his fat body was trembling, and he wanted to bury his head in the soil, for fear of being discovered by Bai Yi. He really didn't expect that Major General Marine, who looked like Bai Yi and had no other characteristics besides being handsome and young. He is said to be someone who kills people neatly, without even blinking an eye. During the arrest, Boyle witnessed with his own eyes a pirate captain who had a bounty of 120 million belly on his head. When he was arrested for attacking a marine soldier on the island, he thought he was strong and resisted vigorously. As a result, in front of Bai Yi, in the blink of an eye, he was cut in half with a knife. The speed was unbelievable. If this knife cuts towards me, Boyle didn't dare to think about it anymore. When Bai Yi looked at the arrested crowd below, a very familiar figure suddenly came into view. A smile appeared at the corner of Bai Yi's mouth. There were too many people arrested, and he didn't notice at the time that he even brought this guy back. Hey, isn't this Boss Boyle? Why are you not busy today and why are you going to the Marine headquarters in person? Hearing Bai Yi's teasing tone, Boyle almost fainted from fright. Even though he was hiding so far away, how could he still be discovered by Bai Yi? Boyle didn't even dare to raise his head, he could only see Bai Yi's feet in front of him. Why don't you speak? Weren't you quite good at speaking at the auction house yesterday? Bai Yi pulled out the long knife from Kuik's waist and gently slapped Boyle's sweaty cheek with the blade. Every tap was like a slap on Boyle's heart, making him twitch all over. Lord Bai Yi, it was all my fault yesterday that I offended Lord Bai Yi. Boyle kowtowed like a man, and after a while he cut his forehead and blood flowed all over his face. He looked extremely miserable. But even so, Boyle still didn't stop and was still kowtowing crazily, completely ignoring the wound on his forehead. When the other arrested people in the surrounding area saw this scene, they were so frightened that they were afraid that Bai Yi would find them next. Isn't this too cruel? Seeing Boyle being so afraid of him, Bai Yi suddenly had another idea in his mind. Have Quick pull out a videophone bug and start recording. Bai Yi said coldly, since you are more sincere in admitting your mistake, I ask you a question. As long as you tell me the truth, I can consider sparing your life. When Boyle heard this, he was immediately overjoyed and quickly promised, Sir, you can ask, as long as I know something, I promise to tell you. Let me ask you, why did Esther Kirkstreet and Maple Cecil Palace suddenly come to participate in the auction yesterday, but we at Marine did not receive any news? Hearing Bai Yi's inquiry, Boyle quickly replied without any delay, Esther Kirk was invited by Lord Doflamingo on the grounds that he has giant slaves. The Maple Cecil Palace should have followed Esther Kirk out to buy slaves after learning the news. Quote. Having said this, Boyle glanced at Bai Yi, gritted his teeth and continued, Sir Bai Yi, Doflamingo invited Esther Kirk to attend the auction just to discredit you in the Sabayati Islands. Make the 5 rules you promulgate become the joke of the island. This way it will not affect his business on the island. Quote. Since he has decided to sell Doflamingo in exchange for a chance of survival, he should sell it more thoroughly and let Bai Yi know his sincerity, so that at least the chance of survival may be greater. But Bai Yi didn't care about the following paragraph at all, because he already knew it. He only recorded the first half of what he said, but not the rest at all. As long as CP0 and Aokiji watch this video, they will know that it is Esther Kirksaint who was invited by Doflamingo. When the time comes, you will have to wear Doflamingo even if you don't want to wear it. Islands 1 to 29 in Sabayati, a total of 29 islands. In the square of each island, there are marine soldiers holding image phone bugs, ready for battle. During the period when Marine controlled the dock, the residents of the island lived on tenterhooks. You can see Marine arresting many people every day. In the past 3 days, at least nearly 1,000 people have been arrested. In such a depressing environment, they are very concerned about Marine's every move. After all, this is related to their own wealth and life. Many onlookers gathered in the square, looking at the Marine soldier holding the image phone bug, and whispered, "Have you heard? Marine will deal with those who violate the 5 rules today, so it will broadcast the treatment scenes here in the square for us to see. How will Marine deal with it? Is it true that all those who violate the rules will be killed as written in the rules?" Hearing this, people on the side panicked and said, "That's not true. We have arrested more than 1,000 people in the past few days. How can we kill all of them?" That's right, even if 1,000 pigs are killed, the pigs still have to grunt. What's more, there are more than 1,000 people, and among them there are some big pirates with a bounty of nearly 100 million. How can these people be killed so easily by Marine? Some people continue to speculate on how Marine will deal with this group of people. On the other side, Bai Yi played with the image phone bug in his hand. The video in it was not only what Boyle said before, but also the scene where Doflamingo invited Esther Kirk. And what Boyle later confessed was that he knew about the underground business involved in the Don Quixote family, drug smuggling, attacks on allies, and plundering allies for slave trading. More importantly, Doflamingo actually sold arms to the Revolutionary Army. If the world government knew about this matter, I'm afraid Doflamingo would have to shed his skin even if he didn't die. In the eyes of the world government, I am afraid that the threat of the 4 emperors combined is not as great as that of the Revolutionary Army. Of course, this is considered from a strategic level, not a combat level. As a pirate recognized by the government, Doflamingo is actually still providing firepower to the Revolutionary Army fighting against the government. However, among the information Boyle gave, there was something that seemed inconspicuous. Doflamingo has been in frequent contact with a certain force recently, and he should be doing secret business. He knew this news because he saw family cadres frequently appearing in the Sabayati Islands and carrying a large amount of goods packed in boxes, so he guessed it himself. And he also provided several addresses where secret transactions may be conducted. Boyle himself didn't know if the news was valuable, but in this situation, he couldn't wait to tell everything he knew. Regardless of whether it is useful or not, it is better to say it than not to say it. If other people were exposed to this news, they might not care so much. After all, Doflamingo even dares to do business with the Revolutionary Army, what else can't he do? But when these words fell in Bai Yi's ears, Bai Yi instantly understood what Doflamingo was doing. What certain force? Isn't it the Beast Pirates, one of the 4 emperors' pirate groups? If we count the time, Doflamingo has now developed an artificial devil fruit through scientist Caesar. And use this to trade with the Beast Pirates and obtain a lot of money. This Doflamingo is really courageous and doesn't do anything about personnel matters. Privately selling arms to the Revolutionary Army offended the world government. Privately sold artificial devil fruits to the Beast Pirates, offending Marine. He directly offended the power he relied on, and he really wasn't afraid of death. Just when Bai Yi was thinking about how to maximize the role of the information in his hand, there was a knock on the office door, the door was pushed open, and Smoker walked in. "Sir Bai Yi, the agreed execution time has arrived, do you want to start now?" Bai Yi said with a smile on his lips, "Yes, of course, it's time to let them know the consequences of violating the rules. If it weren't for the deterrent effect, Bai Yi would have killed all these people long ago. After holding back for 3 days, I can finally see how much world power these days can bring to me. In the 29 island squares, the soldiers were notified and turned on the image phone bugs in their hands at the same time. A beam of light shot out from the shell of the image phone bug and fell in midair, forming a large light curtain nearly 100 meters long and wide. Almost everyone on the island can see the content on the light screen. The first picture that appeared in the light curtain shocked everyone. On a small execution platform, 10 arrested people were kneeling on it, and beside them stood the soldiers carrying out the execution. Under the execution platform, there were more than 1,000 people kneeling who were about to be executed. Densely packed, filling the entire screen. The onlookers said in disbelief, is Marine really going to execute them all? Isn't this too cruel? They are going to be executed soon, won't they resist? In fact, it's not that they didn't resist, but most of those who resisted were killed on the spot. The remaining ones who were not killed were also seriously injured and could not survive for many days without treatment. Moreover, he has to endure the torture of pain every moment, so it is better to be executed as soon as possible and get rid of the sea of misery. The scene turned, and a rather young and handsome boy appeared on the screen, wearing a pure white Major General Marine uniform, with a cloak of justice blowing in the wind behind him. A beautiful picture is formed. If he is not linked to those who are about to be executed. No one could imagine that it was this sunny boy in front of him who led the team to arrest those who violated the rules. Bai Yi showed a bright smile and said kindly, "Hello everyone on the island, I am Major General Marine, Bai Yi, who is responsible for the security of the island. I have not been in the Sabayati Islands for a long time, so there must be quite a few people who still don't know me. But I promise that from today on, you will remember my appearance and even every word I say in your heart. Because only in this way, when you face execution in the future, you will not be confused about why you were executed." Although Bai Yi's smile looked warm, his words made millions of residents on the 29 islands shudder. This young Major General Marine is so murderous. After Bai Yi finished speaking, he said coldly, "The execution begins." The scene is frozen on the execution platform, with 10 Marine soldiers raising their swords and slashing at the executed person at the same time. 10 heads fell instantly, and blood spread all over the execution platform. At this time, Bai Yi's cold voice sounded again, "Those who don't follow the rules will only die. I would like to see how many of you have heads that can be chopped off." Next batch, 10 more people were pushed to the execution platform. Bai Yi and other Marine officers stood aside, watching everything that happened in front of them indifferently. The execution scene lasted for 2 full hours. At the back, even the executioners had no strength in their arms, so they slashed the person with a big knife and killed him half to death. The person in pain kept wailing. The already bloody execution scene was made even more cruel out of thin air. Quickly replace them with new executioners to prevent this from happening again. It was not until all 1,123 people who violated the rules were executed that Bai Yi appeared on the screen again. "I hope this execution can bring enough attention to you, otherwise, your heads will be chopped off next time." As soon as he finished speaking, the screen suddenly disappeared, and all the Marine soldiers in the square withdrew. Only the onlookers who were still in shock were left. After watching the entire live broadcast, everyone felt their necks getting cold and subconsciously kept stroking their necks, as if to make sure the head is still on the neck. Everyone seemed to be still immersed in the horrific scenes from before. This is too scary. More than 1,000 people died like this. Can we still stay in the Sabayati Islands? If you don't stay in the Sabayati Islands, where else can you go? The Sabayati Islands are located at the entrance to the New World. As long as the pirates who go out to sea do not die during the voyage, they will basically go to the Sabayati Islands. It can be said that this location is unique. Even if you don't want to come, people will naturally come here. This is also the reason why Bai Yi dares to implement the iron-blooded policy in the Sabayati Islands. No matter how much people are killed, there will always be groups of people coming here. Someone said reluctantly, "That means we can only follow those 5 rules in the future. If you think your neck is stiff enough, you can choose to violate it." That Marine Major General Bai Yi is very murderous at first glance. If you mess with him, your life will probably be lost. As soon as these words came out, a group of people were immediately speechless. After a long time, someone said quietly, "Wait, Wait until all other forces express their dissatisfaction and Bai Yi can't bear it anymore, then the situation will improve. I don't know how long it will take to wait. After the execution, Bai Yi laughed heartily. This execution alone gave him more than 6,000 points of world source power, plus the small number of people he dealt with during the pursuit. A total of nearly 7,000 points of world source power have been obtained, which is one of the few great harvests. And through the execution, Bai Yi also obtained a wealth of nearly 3 billion Baileys. The problem of the base having no money was solved in one fell swoop. However, such an opportunity is indeed rare. If it hadn't been for the Tianlong incident and the dock being blocked, these people would have escaped from the Sabayati Islands long ago before being captured by Bai Yi. Where can I wait stupidly for Bai Yi to arrest me? However, this also proves from the side that Bai Yi's choice to join Marine is not without benefits. In addition to gaining world power by increasing your military rank, you can also use the power of Marine to benefit yourself. On the second day of the execution, Byakuya gave the video that Boyle said was recorded in his hand to 09 and Aokiji. This is the information provided by the owner of Doflamingo Auction House. You can take a look. The video basically contained accusations about Doflamingo's various crimes, and Boyle told everything he knew. Just to exchange for one's own life. It's a pity that he knows too much, and Bai Yi can't keep him alive. If he accidentally said that Doflamingo invited Esther Kirksane to target him, it would probably attract Ling Zhou's considerable attention. Therefore, in order to avoid the possibility of implicating himself, Bai Yi could only send Boyle away. You need to be so cautious when doing things. When 09 and Aokiji learned that Doflamingo was actually connected to the Revolutionary Army and the Beast Pirates, that expression can be used to change faces on stage. Ling Zhou questioned, Bai Yi, are you sure this video of yours is true? Because the video involved so much that he couldn't even determine his next move. If this matter is true, it must be reported and enforcement measures will be taken against Doflamingo. Faced with Ling Zhou's doubts, Bai Yi said calmly, I don't know if it's true or not. I just happened to get this video among the people I arrested. Besides, whether this video is true or false has nothing to do with me. If you want to confirm whether it's true or false, can't you just investigate it yourself? Isn't this what your CP organization is best at? After hearing this, Aokiji suddenly calmed down a lot and was no longer as excited as before. Although Bai Yi's tone was not kind, what he said did make sense. Most of Doflamingo's actions are related to world government. The only thing related to Marine is Doflamingo's deal with the Beast Pirates. But because Doflamingo is a Shichibukai recognized by the world government, even Marine has no law enforcement authority against him. So this matter really has nothing to do with Marine. Ling Zhou didn't care about Bai Yi's tone of voice. Compared to this trivial matter, he wanted to report these matters quickly and let the superiors decide how to deal with them. And looking at it this way, even if the Maple Cecil Palace was really abducted by people sent by Doflamingo, it is not impossible. After all, he is so courageous. After identifying the target of Doflamingo, Marine quickly evacuated the garrison at the Sabayati Islands pier. The closure of the Sabayati Islands for a week will put a lot of pressure on Marine. If it weren't for the celestial dragons involved this time and the world government's support of Marine's ban, all the forces would have fallen out long ago. In addition to sending Akainu and Kizaru out, the Warring States period also sent Garp, an old guy, to the New World to monitor the Four Emperors pirate group. I'm afraid that the Four Emperors pirate group will take advantage of this moment to cause trouble. Fortunately, the ban did not last long, otherwise Sengoku would have wanted to pull Zephyr out of the training camp and send him to the New World to garrison the Marine base. The lawless zone of the Sabayati Islands has changed into a completely new look. Under Bai Yi's 5 rules, no one dares to stand up and take the lead in violating them. Everyone obeys the law and is afraid of offending Marine. When Marine soldiers patrol the streets and stand guard, they always look straight and arrogant. Completely opposite to the cautious appearance in the past. And these are all the effects of the White Knight. When Bai Yi executed more than 1,000 people live, Bai Yi's evil reputation spread throughout the Sabayati Islands. Almost everyone knows that there is a Marine Major General named Bai Yi on the Sabayati Islands. His methods are extremely cruel, and anyone who falls into his hands will be worse than dead. As time went by, the rumors became more and more outrageous. It was originally said that Bai Yi killed more than 1,000 people with his own hands, and now it was said that Bai Yi personally ate more than 1,000 people. And what was said was true. Even people like Smoker who were at the execution site, after hearing it too much, felt that the situation at that time might really be like this. Usually when I see Bai Yi, I keep looking at Bai Yi's mouth, wondering how this small mouth can eat so many people. This also made Bai Yi's reputation among Marine soldiers skyrocket. Whenever they hear an order from Major General Bai Yi, they all want to complete it as quickly as possible, for fear of provoking Major General Bai Yi and ending up being eaten. Just when this rumor was spreading crazily, Bai Yi was happily counting the world's sources of power in his office. Congratulations to the host for achieving the achievement, famous Sabayati Islands, and the reward is 2,000 points of world source power. Pass it on. Pass them all to me hard. It's best to spread my evil name across the sea and help me achieve multiple achievements at once. When I have enough world power and strengthen myself, Lousy will really eat you all. Open the long-lost system panel. Host, Bai. Template, One Punch Man, Saitama. Fusion degree, 20%. World source power, 21,000. Fusion degree 20% 21%, requires world source power, 1100. Special skills, Imperial Engine, Armed Color Hockey LV6+, Wisdom Color Hockey LV5+, Swordsmanship LV9+. Character summoned, Sonic Ninja, Sonic Plus. 21,000 points of world source power. It's enough for Bai Yi, he doesn't want to accumulate any more. Directly and continuously increase 10 fusion points. Fusion degree 20% 21%, requires world source power, 1100. Fusion degree 21% 22%, requires world source power, 1200. Fusion degree 28% 29%, cost of world source power, 1900. Fusion degree 29% 30%, requires world source power, 2000. A total of 15,500 points of world source power were spent. Although the cost is high, the effects are also extremely significant. The continuous warm current continuously transforms the inside of the body, strengthening every inch of skin and bones. Bai Yi felt that his strength was growing exponentially, and he felt indescribably powerful. Because the fusion degree was directly increased by 10 points, the process lasted for a while before this feeling gradually subsided. Bai Yi slightly sensed that the strength of his skin now was even higher than the strength of the armor-colored domineering before he was upgraded. This kind of enhancement is the most basic and the most profitable enhancement. The physical foundation becomes stronger, and the use of other skills is also enhanced in disguise. Looking at the remaining 5,500 points of world source power, Bai Yi prepared to raise the levels of Armed Color Hockey and Knowledge Color Hockey. Armed SIBA LV6 LV7, requires world source power, 600. Armed SIBA LV7 LV8, requires world source power, 1200. Seeing the doubling of the world source power, Bai Yi calmed down instantly. This requires too much world source power. Originally, Bai Yi was planning to directly cultivate the two colors of domineering energy at the same time. From this point of view, it can only increase the two colors of domineering to the same level. After all, he still has 1 or 2,000 world source power left as a backup. Sonic summoned by using world source power this time has brought great convenience to Bai Yi. Let Bai Yi taste the sweetness. Armed color domineering is increased to LV8, and a high-level method of using armed color domineering is obtained, Liang winding. Flowing Sakura twining. Flowing Sakura is the name given to armed domineering by the warriors of Wano country, which means flowing domineering. By wrapping the armed color domineering energy around itself in a special way, the effect of releasing the armed color domineering energy can be achieved. The normal use of armed color hockey is nothing more than covering. Covering the body with armed color hockey can strengthen one's defense and attack. In addition to itself, as long as the domineering strength is enough, it can also be covered on weapons. By using Liang, you can gather the armed colors on your hands or weapons and release them, directly evolving into substantial attack power or defense power. It can hit enemies with a powerful impact, and it can also form a protective wall to defend against invisible attacks. Is this how Wano uses armament hockey? Bai Yi activated his armed domineering energy, and suddenly there were light red annular air currents wrapping around his right fist. As the air currents continued to flow, they looked like cherry blossoms dancing in the air. Stretch out your index finger and tap lightly into the void. An invisible small shock wave surges out, and the thick wall is directly penetrated like air. Bai Yi came to the wall and saw that there were no cracks around the hole opened by the shock wave. The wall was extremely smooth, as if it had been carefully polished. Is the power gathered but never dispersed? Bai Yi was overjoyed by this, and then excitedly raised the hotkey of visibility to level 8 as well. But there was no prompt as Bai Yi imagined, it was just an upgrade to level 8. Bai Yi didn't pay much attention to this. He was strong with or without me. Next is the draw that Bai Yi has been waiting for. Congratulations to the host for reaching 30% integration. You can randomly select the special abilities of the powerful in the world of One Punch Man. The extraction is completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the ability of the S-Class hero Zombie Man. Unlimited recovery passive, cannot be improved. Unlimited recovery. It can quickly recover injuries and physical strength. Even if it is broken into pieces, it can recover independently within a certain period of time. Grass. Why isn't it telepathy? Bai Yi thought with some resentment. In fact, this unlimited recovery is considered a very strong skill. Even if Bai Yi is beaten to pieces, he can return to his original state after a period of time. If this skill is drawn when it is weak, Bai Yi may feel very happy. After all, this is a life-saving skill. But with Byukuyu's current strength, as long as he doesn't provoke the 3 Marine Generals and the 4 Emperors pirate group at the same time, he really didn't think anyone could beat him to pieces. Therefore, this skill is somewhat useless. However, if you think about it from another perspective, as long as Bai Yi doesn't seek death and is attacked by all forces, making the attack speed exceed the reply speed, it will be difficult for him to die. Then I can be considered the Xiaoqiang of immune to death. Bai Yi thought boredly. Look at the column of world source power again. World source power, 1600. After working hard for half a year, I returned to before liberation. However, Bai Yi was quite satisfied with the strength in exchange. Then you can do whatever you want. Under Bai Yi's high-pressure policy, the Sabayati Islands formed a harmonious society. You can no longer see the scene on the street where the two groups started fighting immediately after a disagreement. When slave trading is carried out on the island, it must be reported to Marine. Although Bai Yi cannot single-handedly reverse the slavery system in the entire pirate world, but he was able to disallow those slaves who were captured by force on slave ships from being sold on the grounds that they were illegal, and restore the normal status of these slaves and let them return to the place where they live. What Bai Yi didn't expect was that just because of this move, many freed slaves shed tears of gratitude. On the way home, he spontaneously promoted Major General Bai Yi as a good Marine who upheld justice, which greatly improved his reputation in various places. This can be considered an unexpected surprise. The current Sabayati Islands seem to be calm and peaceful, with humans and animals in harmony. In fact, this was all based on Bai Yi's strong strength, which allowed these lawless elements on the island to temporarily settle down. And Bai Yi is not planning to stay in the Sabayati Islands for the rest of his life. He didn't want to have Sabayati's archipelago start to get messy with his back legs as soon as he stepped forward. You must know that the current, harmonious, Sabayati Islands can create a wealth of nearly 700 million belly for him every month. Of course, Bai Yi did not keep the money for himself. He divided half of it and gave it to the Warring States period, solving the urgent needs of the Warring States period in one fell swoop. After all, during the Warring States period, Bai Yi also helped Bai Yi resist a lot of pressure from all sides. This made Sengoku often say in front of other Marines that Zephyr taught a good apprentice. Regardless of his strength, this method of making money is worth learning. Bai Yi's idea is very simple. If we have money, we all make it together, and no one can escape if something goes wrong. I've already given you half of the money. If something really happens, can you still ignore it? After all, the adult world is all about benefits. In the White Knight office, Smoker, Quick, Dasky and Ferguson looked at each other with doubts in their eyes. Ferguson asked in a low voice, Major General Smoker, you are most familiar with Major General Bai Yi. Do you know what Major General Bai Yi wants to do when he calls us here temporarily? Smoker shook his head and said he didn't know. Then I subconsciously wanted to take out the cigar from my waist, feeling uncomfortable without something in my mouth, but my hand just touched the cigar. Smoker remembered that this was in Bai Yi's office, and stuffed the half-drawn cigar back. Maybe forget it. It would be uneconomical to be beaten up by Bai Yi just because he smoked a cigar. Dasky looked at Xiao Yi sugar on her waist, as if thinking about how to get Feng Ming back from Bai Yi. Quick, on the other hand, stood upright and looked indifferent, not caring at all about the content of their conversation. In his opinion, what's the use of thinking so much now? When the time comes, what is Major General Bai Yi's order? Can't we just do it? At this moment, Bai Yi opened the door and came back from outside. Hey, I didn't expect you guys to come so fast. When Ferguson saw Bai Yi, he quickly asked, Major General Bai Yi, you called us over. Do you have something to announce? As Bai Yi's butler, Ferguson is many times busier than others, so he cherishes his time very much. After Bai Yi sat down, he didn't whet everyone's appetite and said directly, I'm going to create a pirate ranking list in the Sabayati Islands. Pirate rankings. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. We're Marine. Go get the pirate rankings, no matter what you think, it will be awkward. And, will this do us any good? Bai Yi saw everyone's doubts and explained with a smile, this is just to establish another ranking based on the rules of the arena. Actually, we need to find out why these pirates go to sea, for fame, profit, and freedom from restraint. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Bai Yi was right. These 3 points almost cover the thoughts of most pirates. So we make a pirate ranking list and rank the pirates other than the 4 emperors pirate group. For those at the top, we can increase their bounty amount. Doesn't this indirectly help pirates become famous in the sea? Well, in this case, it will indeed attract some pirates to participate. There are many pirates who want to become famous all over the world and become One Piece. For them, the only way to become famous is to continuously increase the amount of rewards, and the publicity of such selections is far less powerful than rankings. Think about it, one side is a bounty list, and the other side is a ranking list of the strongest pirates under 4 emperors, arranged by Marine. Comparing the two, the ranking posted by Marine is definitely more eye-catching. Byakuya continued, in order to attract most pirates, we can also promote becoming a pirate at the top of the rankings, or even a Shichibukai. Dasky asked honestly, Shichibukai? Isn't this only acceptable if the world government recognizes it? Do we mean what we say? Silly. We just need to let the people below spread the word and let others know that it is possible to become a Shichibukai through the rankings. It's not like we're guaranteed to be a Shichibukai. Quote. When everyone heard this, they thought, you are trying to deceive people again. Becoming the number 1 pirate group under the 4 emperors is famous. Being a Shichibukai means you can avoid being chased by Marines and robbed legally, which is beneficial. With these 2 points, I guarantee that we can definitely attract most pirates to participate. What Bai Yi said was quite reasonable, taking the pirates' psychology into full consideration. Ferguson wondered, Major General Bai Yi, this can indeed attract pirates, but will this do us any good? Bai Yi leaned on the chair and said calmly, why is there no benefit? In the past, when 2 groups of pirates fought, the winning side could only get the loser's treasure. But now, in addition to getting treasure, you can also become famous and get the chance to become a Shichibukai. Quote. This ranking is the catalyst that catalyzes the civil war among pirates. If this happens, won't it reduce the losses to our Marine in disguise? Hearing this, Ferguson's eyes lit up. Yes, why didn't I think of this? The more intense the pirate fight is, the easier it is for Marine to sit back and watch you dog bite dog. Bai Yi continued, furthermore, by doing this, we can also obtain more information about the pirates and gain a more comprehensive understanding of the pirates' strength. This will also be of great help to us when we go out to pursue the pirates in the future. Smoker and others, the more they listened, the more they felt that what Bai Yi said made sense. For such things, Marine only needs to do a simple sorting, and he can quietly watch the pirates fight and reap the benefits. Lord Bai's idea is really amazing. Looking at the excited expressions of Smoker and others, Bai Yi thought to himself, once the strength of the pirates is exhausted, I can send people to harvest from top to bottom. The stronger pirates you kill, the more world source power you get. By launching the ranking list, you can effectively harvest and kill those with high rankings. In front of Bai Yi, this is not a ranking list, but a murder note. Chapter 51. After the news spread that Byakuya was going to establish a pirate ranking list, most of the pirates were dismissive of this performance. I think a pirate ranking ranked by Marine is not convincing at all. Only a small number of pirates participated with the attitude of giving it a try, and the reward amount was slightly increased. Although it has the effect of improving reputation, the appeal is not that great. The number of participants was still very few. But when the pirates heard that the top ones on the rankings might become Shichibukai, their attitude changed 180 degrees. Not only did he participate enthusiastically, but he also became more and more ruthless in his attacks, often killing people in the ring. This matter soon reached the ears of warring states. After learning about Bai Yi's thoughts, warring states felt that Bai Yi's words made sense. And such things can indeed bring tangible benefits to Marine. Therefore, after warring states contacted world government, certain modifications were made directly on the reward list. In addition to the bounty amount, a row of small words was also added on the side, belonging to the pirate group number 1 in the pirate rankings. As soon as this move came out, it stimulated the thoughts of those pirates who were already fighting for fame and wealth. The disputes became more and more intense, and all pirates on the sea knew that Marine had launched a pirate ranking list. Even Bai Yi, who proposed the idea, also promoted it a little. Even the news reached the ears of the New World 4 emperors. Maybe it's because Marine didn't include the 4 emperors' pirates in the rankings. So the response was not big. For the 4 emperors' pirate group, so what if you reach first place in the pirate rankings? If you encounter them, you will still be destroyed. There is nothing to pay attention to. However, when the news fell into the ears of Hongfa and Beckman, they had different conjectures. Beckman pondered for a while and then said after a while, Marine's move is intensifying the fighting among pirates. The red-haired man looked in the direction of the Sabayati Islands and said silently, yes, once the rankings came out, many pirates fought to the death, but Marine could just sit back and enjoy the results. What a good plan. I really don't know what this sea will look like in the future. Major General Bai Yi, Chief Instructor Zepha is here. Quick pushed the gate of opening and said excitedly. Hearing this, Bai Yoruichi stood up from his chair. Teacher Zepha, why did you come to Sabayati suddenly? I don't know about this. Anyway, I heard from the soldiers stationed at the pier that I saw Chief Instructor Zepha's warship arriving at the pier soon. Let's go, hurry up and meet Teacher Zepha at the dock. Almost all the people under Bai Yi came out of the training camp, so they were quite excited when they heard the news of Zepha's arrival. Not to mention Bai Yi, during the half-year of the training camp, Zepha basically treated him as his son. In addition to his master-disciple relationship with Zepha, he also felt that he was both a master and a father. This time Teacher Zepha arrives suddenly, and he will definitely go to greet him. When the group of people hurried to the dock, Zepha had not arrived yet. But everyone was not in a hurry and started chatting on the edge of the pier. Bai Yi told Ferguson, today, the soldiers on the island must strictly enforce the law and do not allow any violations of the regulations. Ferguson nodded and said, Major General Bai Yi, don't worry, I have already arranged these things. Smoker on the side said confidently, Sir Bai Yi, after the last execution incident, basically no one on the Sabayati Islands dares to commit another crime. In fact, Bai Yi also knew this. After all, the harsh methods he showed before had shocked many people. It's just that Teacher Zepha arrived today, and Bai Yi didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of Teacher Zepha. And Bai Yoruichi's actions while standing on the pier attracted quite a lot of people's attention. Of course, if you don't violate the rules promulgated by Bai Yi, nothing will be done to you. But this can never be erased, the impression left by Bai Yi in their minds. There is no way. After the last live broadcast of the execution, Bai Yi has become almost synonymous with cruelty and bloodshed in the hearts of the people of the Sabayati Islands. Someone said in a trembling voice, even the bloody butcher Bai Yi has come to the dock. Is there going to be another big trouble in the Sabayati Islands? The person next to him said with a deep expression, not only Bai Yi, almost all marine generals on the island are here. If something really happens, a large number of people will probably lose their heads. The news of Bai Yi's appearance at the dock swept through the entire Sabayati Islands like a storm. Almost everyone felt that Bai Yi was going to kill someone again. Thinking of the scene where thousands of people were executed together, everyone felt shuddering. For a time, the streets that were originally bustling with people and bustling with traffic became deserted. The store closed down immediately and stopped doing business. The pirates who went to the island to buy food and fresh water had just handed over 1 million belly. After hearing the news, in the shocked eyes of the marine soldier, he turned back to the ship. He ordered his men to hoist the sail quickly, saying that they wanted to stay away from the Sabayati Islands for fear of implicating themselves. Well, in less than an hour, it seemed like no one was alive on several nearby islands. Not even a human figure can be seen. Zephyr didn't let Bai Yi wait long, and arrived at the dock soon. As soon as Zephyr got off the boat, he saw Bai Yi coming to the dock to greet him. My heart warmed, this apprentice was not in vain. But Bai Yi opened his mouth and Zephyr immediately changed his mind. Teacher Zephyr, it has been so long since I came to visit your disciple. I must have prepared a gift for your good disciple, right? Bai Yi stretched out his hands and asked Zephyr for a gift. Zephyr, with a dark face, looked at Bai Yi with a smirk on his face, and thought to himself, otherwise I will expel him from the school. Seeing that Zephyr's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, Bai Yi took back his hand and sighed quietly. I guessed that the teacher might not have brought a gift, so forget it. But before Zephyr showed his smile again, Bai Yi continued, Smoker, remember, on July 17th, in the afternoon, teacher Zephyr owes his apprentice Shiro Yoruichi a gift for meeting him. Forehead. Smoker looked embarrassed. I also came out of the marine training camp before. How do you remember this? When Bai Yi saw teacher Zephyr almost wanting to go back to the ship, he quickly said, Teacher Zephyr, I was just making a joke for you. You see, you still take it seriously. You are really getting stingier as you get older. Zephyr looked at Bai Yi in front of him and had the urge to slap him to death. Why did Laozi want to come to Sabayati to see this evildoer? The students who were following Zephyr saw the apprentice who was often talked about by Zephyr instructor as a super talented disciple. Senior Bai Yi, who often used it to give them examples in class. When it turned out to be like this, everyone felt that their three views had been refreshed. Zephyr brought the students from the marine training camp out this time to give them a practical assessment. Go capture the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line and let them practice their skills. This time I was passing by the Sabayati Islands, so I came specifically to see White Knight. Bai Yi and Zephyr walked in front, and the others followed wisely. Quick and Ferguson also chatted enthusiastically with the people in the training camp. After all, they were quite prestigious as leaders of the Anti-White Alliance. Zephyr looked at the empty streets, then recalled the rumors he heard, and asked doubtfully, You won't kill everyone on the island, right? Bai Yi was speechless. Teacher, do you think what you said is true? Am I that kind of person? Zephyr shook his head and said with emotion, It's hard to say whether you are that kind of person. Although Zephyr is at Marine headquarters, he is still very concerned about Bai Yi's information. Moreover, warring states often contacted him and told him about Bai Yi. When he learned that Bai Yi was broadcasting live execution scenes across the island, he was subconsciously surprised. He didn't find Bai Yi to be so murderous in the marine training camp. If it were Zephyr from before, he would definitely tell Bai Yi. However, Zephyr now doesn't think there is anything wrong with what Bai Yi did. You can't take these people with you. Even if you kill 1,000 people, you won't necessarily get one innocent person. It wouldn't be much of a problem to kill them all. Zephyr also wanted to take the students to find the pirate group to practice this time, so he didn't stay here for long in Bai Yi. The next day, we set off again. Bai Yi sent Zephyr to the dock again. When Bai Yi came out of the marine base, the streets were still empty. Before leaving, Zephyr looked at Bai Yi in front of him and asked doubtfully, You really don't want to compete with me, teacher? Bai Yi waved his hand and said awkwardly, No need, just feel free to go. Seeing Bai Yi's evasion, this aroused Zephyr's curiosity even more. In the past, in the training camp, Zephyr took the initiative to find Bai Yi before he could. Bai Yi ran up to compete with Zephyr, looking like a fighting maniac. Now, Bai Yi has no opponent of the same level as him in the Sabayati Islands. He took the initiative to send it to his door, but Bai Yi was unwilling to discuss it. Zephyr couldn't help but wonder, remembering that warring states had mentioned to him the noise made in the Sabayati Islands during the White Night. Zephyr subconsciously guessed that it was probably because this boy had not trained during this period and his strength had not improved, so he did not want to compete with him. After thinking about this, Zephyr patted Bai Yi on the shoulder and said with concern, "Bai Yi, for us Marine, the most important thing is strength. The rules you are currently implementing in the Sabayati Islands are very useful and can help Marine solve a lot of troubles. But these are not as important as improving one's own strength. Only when you are strong can you better implement what you want in your heart. Don't put the cart before the horse." Quote. Seeing Zephyr tell him so much sincerely, Bai Yi felt touched and amused. I was touched because Zephyr said this to himself because he cared about himself. It's funny because Bai Yi refused to compete because the improvement in strength was too exaggerated. After all, it is a 10% integration degree, which means Bai Yi's strength has doubled several times compared to when he left the training camp. And this was only completed in less than a month. Bai Yi was afraid that if he used his hands to show his full strength and defeat Teacher Zephyr with one punch, it would be a huge blow to the old man, so he tried to avoid it and was unwilling to take action. And Zephyr obviously misunderstood Bai Yi's meaning. But Bai Yi couldn't disgrace the teacher in front of so many people. This is too cruel for an old man. Therefore, Bai Yi could only smile bitterly and said, "Teacher Zephyr, don't worry, I promise to strengthen training." Seeing Bai Yi's sincere attitude, Zephyr said nothing more. After all, there were many of Bai Yi's subordinates and students here, and he wanted to save some face for Bai Yi. Zephyr nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll leave. When I come back again, you can't shirk it." "I understand, teacher." Bai Yi stood at the dock and watched Zephyr leave, thinking, "Teacher, you are the one who insists on beating me up, so don't blame me when the time comes." After sending Zephyr away, Byakuya starts to think about what to do with Doflamingo next. Although his current strength is enough to completely defeat Doflamingo and overwhelm the Don Quixote family by himself. But because first I'm a Marine, I can only wait for orders from above. Bai Yi looked at the Marine uniform on his body and smiled bitterly. This identity can be regarded as a double-edged sword. These days, Bai Yi often receives news from Teacher Zephyr. He led the soldiers in the training camp and defeated many pirate groups. Zephyr is quite experienced in training soldiers. When looking for opponents for them, he will start with weaker pirates. Then, there is a process in which the enemy gradually becomes stronger, allowing the soldiers to fully grow. As for Bai Yi and others, because the time in the training camp was too short. While others were still laying the foundation, he had already completed his studies and graduated successfully. At this time, Bai Yi saw a new message delivered by Smoker. Teacher Zephyr defeated Donald, the new pirate star with a bounty of 230 million. Bai Yi couldn't help but smile and said, "Teacher Zephyr, you are really not tired. Even at such an age, you are still so excited when you see pirates." After putting down the newspaper in his hand, Bai Yi suddenly realized something. Then he picked up the newspaper in his hand, which showed the scene of Teacher Zephyr's battle. In the picture, Teacher Zephyr's fists are as black as ink, and his armed domineering spirit has obviously been cultivated to the extreme. This is also the origin of Black Arm, Zephyr. But the problem lies in these fists. Bai Yi looked at the photo and murmured subconsciously, "At this time, the teacher's right arm has not been cut off, and Heilu Shi's right arm has not been replaced." But comparing what happened in the anime, Teacher Zephyr seemed to be leading the soldiers in the training camp when they went out to hunt down pirates. He met Whitebeard too, but because of his old age and asthma, he lost to Whitebeard too. Not only was his right arm cut off by Whitebeard too, but almost all the recruits in the training camp were injured, leaving only Ain and Binzi. A terrifying thought suddenly appeared in Bai Yi's mind, and he clenched his fist subconsciously. Isn't this just this trip? Far away from the Sabayati Islands, on a small pirate ship. A big fat man who looked nothing like Whitebeard except for his beard and the big knife in his hand said stupidly, "Mom, these pirates have all been dealt with. When are we going to meet Dad?" From the treasure room of the pirate ship, an extremely sharp sound came. "My good son, wait a little longer. After you do something that will make you famous, we can recognize your white-bearded father." Bai Yi looked at the newspaper in his hand. The more he thought about it, the more possible it became. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes. Regardless, even if it wasn't this time, I would rush over to avoid possible tragedies. Bai Yi couldn't accept that he let things happen even though he knew the future development. But before that, Bai Yi quickly dialed the phone number on Zepha's ship, wanting to give Teacher Zepha a heads up, allowing him to avoid Whitebeard too in advance. In this case, tragedy may be prevented from happening. But what makes Bai Yi feel nervous is that no one answered the call. Now Bai Yi knew that his guess was probably correct, otherwise he would not even answer the phone. Smoker, come here. Smoker, who was in the next office, suddenly heard Bai Yi calling him, and there was a hint of urgency in his tone. This is something that has never happened before. Smoker immediately realized that something was not going well, and quickly walked into Bai Yi's office, and saw that Bai Yi was still holding the information he had sent before. Smoker asked nervously, Sir Bai Yi, what's wrong? Bai Yi raised the newspaper in his hand. Do you know where Teacher Zepha is now? Instructor Zepha. Smoker hesitated for a moment and said, the news in the newspaper was 2 days ago, and there is no new news coming. Therefore, there is no way to determine the specific location of Instructor Zepha. Quote. Hearing this, Bai Yi threw the newspaper on the table a little irritably. There is no specific direction in this vast sea. Just going out to search for it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. If you can find it. Unless there is something similar to a positioning system that can check the position of warships at sea. However, the science and technology tree in the pirate world is a bit crooked, and there really isn't much serious and useful scientific research. Thinking of this, Bai Yi suddenly remembered that the technology tree in the pirate world is not good, but there are still black technologies. Bai Yi's eyes lit up and he asked Smoker, Smoker, a former general like Teacher Zepha, should have a life card, right? Smoker thought for a moment and nodded, although I haven't heard it from the generals, strong men like them should have life cards. The life card is neither afraid of water nor fire. It is made by mixing your own fingernails into the material. It is a kind of paper that represents the owner's vitality. Pieces of paper torn from the same life card have the ability to attract each other. In other words, as long as Teacher Zepha carries the created life card with him when he travels, there is a part of the Marine headquarters that was torn off from Mr. Zepha's life card. Byakuya can attract each other through the life cards. Find the location of Teacher Zepha. Yes, this is currently the most feasible method. After Bai Yi explained a few words to Smoker, he hurried to Marine headquarters and asked Sengoku for Mr. Zepha's life card. Because it was determined that something might have happened to Teacher Zepha, Bai Yi used his speed as fast as possible, without sparing any physical strength. Shao and Moonwalk were used to the extreme, leaving only a blurry afterimage of the whole person in the air. Everyone on the street could only hear the roar of air one after another above their heads. It was like a cannonball exploding overhead, causing countless people to speculate. In a coating shop on the Sabayati Islands, a white-haired old man with glasses looked at the sky, squinted his eyes and whispered, "Who is this strong man? He can actually burst the air with one kick. What a terrifying power this is." With Bai Yi using all his strength, the journey that normally took half a day to sail was shortened to 20 minutes. Because the situation was urgent, Bai Yi didn't have time to pass the news through the guard at his own door, so he rushed directly towards the Sengoku office. The officers in the Marine headquarters could only see a black shadow flashing in the sky, accompanied by a roar like thunder, rushing towards the office of Sengoku Fleet Admiral. What is going on? Are there pirates planning to attack the Sengoku Fleet Admiral? Isn't this too arrogant? A single person broke into Marine headquarters and attacked Marine Fleet Admiral. Are you the second Golden Lion when you step on a horse? Thinking of this, all the Lieutenant General level officers panicked and quickly used Moonwalk to support the warring state's Fleet Admiral. The remaining Major General level officers mobilized all soldiers in their headquarters to carry out defense work. If it was really an attack on Marine Fleet Admiral, there would definitely not be only one pirate like this. Maybe there is a pirate group ambushing not far from Marine headquarters. Bai Yi didn't expect that he would cause such a big commotion when he rushed directly into the Marine headquarters. But even if he knew it, Bai Yi would still do it. After all, Teacher Zepha's life is at stake, so we can't waste any time. Bai Yi is a very direct person. If you are good to me, then I will be good to you. Zepha treats him like a son, and he also treats Zepha like a father. Now Teacher Zephyr is in trouble and he must go to rescue him. Just when Bai Yi was still a few hundred meters away from Fleet Admiral's office, Aokiji's figure suddenly appeared in front of Bai Yi. Aokiji put away his usual lazy look, with a serious expression. He opened one hand, and countless eyes spread out from his hand. No matter what, I won't let you pass. If you want to attack the Sengoku Fleet Admiral, just stay here. Under Aokiji's control, the ice condensed into a nearly 100-meter thick arc-shaped ice wall in the blink of an eye, which was even harder than steel. Even if it is bombarded with artillery shells, tens of thousands of artillery shells may not be able to shake this ice wall. Bai Yi looked at Aokiji, who was waiting in front of him, dumbfounded. He knew in his heart that Aokiji had misunderstood his identity and thought that he was coming to attack the Sengoku Fleet Admiral, so he took action against him. In fact, this can't be blamed on Aokiji. It can only be said that Bai Yi's speed is so fast that no one can see his appearance. Even Aokiji didn't recognize Byakuya's identity. In order to avoid wasting more time, Byakuya had no choice but to explain, "General Aokiji, it's me, Byakuya." Aokiji, who had had many contacts with Byakuya, was stunned when he heard the sound. He could still distinguish Bai Yi's voice. This black shadow was Bai Yi. What exactly is going on? I'm really in an emergency and need to contact Sengoku Fleet Admiral. Hearing Bai's urgent tone, Aokiji realized that something might really have happened. Just when he was about to use his ability to lift the ice wall, he saw Bai Yi's right fist wrapped in light red domineering energy and punched out from the air. The next moment, the ice wall nearly 100 meters thick exploded, and Bai Yi punched a hole of more than 30 meters in the middle. Byakuya passed directly through the hole, leaving Aokiji with a dull look on his face. Aokiji looked at his hands and murmured in disbelief. I just used the ice wall with all my strength, right? No, it's definitely not the case, I just used the third force. Yes, 3 points of force. There was such a big commotion outside, and Warring States was not deaf, so he noticed it immediately. I originally wanted to take action myself, but after seeing Aokiji suddenly appear and create a giant ice wall out of thin air, the Warring States period gave up the idea of taking action. Aokiji alone should be enough. But what happened next made Warring States stunned. A large hole was suddenly blasted out of the nearly 100-meter ice wall, and broken ice flew all over the sky. A black shadow flew out of the hole and continued to move in his direction. If I go, even Aokiji can't stop it. Who is it? Could it be that old guy Whitebeard? Warring States did not think about it carefully. After all, the enemy was about to be hit in the face, so there was no time. Just when the golden light suddenly bloomed from Warring States' body, he suddenly heard Bai Yi's voice. Warring States Fleet Admiral, I am Bai Yi, I have something urgent to call you. Huh, is it Bai Yi? Warring States was stunned for a moment. The black figure stopped in front of him. He took a closer look and saw who it could be if it wasn't Bai Yi. At this time, Aokiji dispersed the ice wall and explained to the other Marine Vice Admirals who rushed up that the black shadow was Bai Yi. Let them not worry and lift their combat readiness status. This made the Marine Lieutenant Generals breathe a sigh of relief, as long as it wasn't an enemy attack. Warring States looked at the White Knight in front of him and suddenly became very angry. You came as soon as you said you would, and the battle was so big that people who didn't know it really thought someone was going to attack the Marine headquarters. But looking at Bai Yi's anxious look, Zheng Guo knew that Bai Yi really had something urgent to do with him, so he asked nervously, what happened? Teacher Zephyr is in danger, Warring States Fleet Admiral. Do you have Teacher Zephyr's life card here? Warring States was shocked and said, Zephyr is in danger. Yes, I need Teacher Zephyr's life card now to determine the specific location of Teacher Zephyr. Then, rush over quickly. Quote, Marine naturally has Zephyr's life card. Not only Zephyr, but all the officers of Marine headquarters such as Lieutenant General and above, all made life cards. They were placed in a tightly guarded secret room and would not be taken out at ordinary times. In the past, there have been vicious incidents caused by the leakage of life cards. A group of pirates resented a Marine headquarters lieutenant general who captured them. In an unexpected situation, the life card of the Marine headquarters lieutenant general was obtained. So, using the life card's ability to find directions, he launched a sudden attack while the Marine Lieutenant General was catching other pirates. In the end, the Lieutenant General of the Marine headquarters was killed, and all the soldiers on the ship were destroyed, which had a great impact on Marine. This incident sounded the alarm for the Warring States period, so from then on, no one's lifeguard ever left the Marine headquarters. Usually, they only use the lifeguard to determine the status of the Marine at that time. Out of caution, Warring States took a deep breath and confirmed again, "Are you sure Zephyr is in danger now?" Bai Yi nodded heavily. "Before I came, I called Teacher Zephyr, but I couldn't get through." Hearing this, Warring States realized that things might be in trouble. "Okay, then you wait for me here, I'm going to get Zephyr's lifeguard now." After resolving the commotion, Aokiji came to his senses after hearing the conversation between Byakuya and Sengoku. No wonder Bai Yi didn't hesitate to make such a big fuss. It turned out that something happened to Teacher Zephyr. This kind of thing cannot be slowed down. Every second of delay may affect Zephyr's life. What's more, Zephyr still took the students from the training camp out. If something happened, it is no small matter that a mid-level Marine officer can take a break for 2 to 3 years. A few minutes later, Warring States rushed over with the life card that was missing a corner, and said solemnly, "This is Zephyr's life card, you must keep it." Bai Yi took the life card and found that there was no obvious change, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seems that Teacher Zephyr's current condition is not bad, and he is not as critical as imagined. Then Sengoku Fleet Admiral, "General Aokiji, I will leave first." Warring States asked, "Can you solve it alone? Do you want others to help you?" If it weren't for the need to stay at the Marine headquarters, Sengoku would have wanted to go with Shiro Yoruichi. After all, he and Zephyr have been old comrades for decades, and their relationship is extraordinary. After seeing that Zephyr's life card was okay, Bai Yi's nervous mood relaxed a lot, and his expression was no longer as nervous as before. He smiled and said, "I am enough alone." In fact, there were many things that Warring States wanted to ask, but time was urgent now, so he did not ask. Aokiji on the side said, "Byakuya, why don't I go with you? Anyway, I don't have anything to do now. It's safer for the two of us to go together." Sengoku advised, "That's okay. If you two go together, you don't have to worry even if you encounter the Four Emperors pirate group." Bai Yi waved his hand and said, "No need, General Aokiji is too slow. Going together will only waste time. I'm too slow. First I'm a Marine general, and now I am disliked by a Marine Major General." Thinking back again, Bai Yi punched through the ice wall just now. Aokiji fell into crazy self-doubt. Am I really that weak? Or is Bai Yi, the Marine Major General, too powerful? Before leaving, Bai Yi turned back and said, "The commotion caused by Marine headquarters this time was all caused by me. I will bear all the responsibilities when the time comes." Warring States said nonchalantly, "It's not a big deal, it's more important to save people." Although Bai Yi caused a lot of impact on Marine headquarters this time, it made all Marines nervous. But it did not cause any losses, but played a certain training role. If pirates really come to attack Marine headquarters next time, Byakuya will have provided a good experience this time. Of course, from the perspective of the Warring States period, this kind of thing would never happen. Shiro Yoruichi moved, followed by a harsh sonic boom, which was extremely noticeable, and disappeared from the sight of the two in the blink of an eye. Sengoku looked at Bai Yi's disappearing figure and asked Aokiji with confused eyes, "Kuzan, how strong do you think Bai Yi is?" "I think his current strength is no less than that of Zephyr, who was a Marine general back then, or even stronger." "What do you think?" Sengoku talked a lot and found that Aokiji didn't pay attention to him at all, so he coughed awkwardly. At this time Aokiji has successfully convinced himself. The ice wall was broken because he only used 3 points of his strength. The reason why Bai Yi dislikes me for being slow is because my fruit ability is not suitable for flying. It has nothing to do with me. As a Marine general, I am still very strong. After thinking about it, Aokiji felt much more relaxed, with a smile on his face. "Sengoku Fleet Admiral, what did you just ask me?" "Let me tell you, how strong do you think Bai Yi is?" "How strong?" Aokiji pondered for a while and said confidently, "Not much, just my 3 points." In the sea not far from the Sabayati Islands, a dilapidated pirate ship is about to sink into the sea. Next to it, there is a marine warship parked, which is the exclusive warship for the training camp. Zephyr looked at the students who had just finished killing a pirate group and became extremely embarrassed, and sighed imperceptibly. To deal with the entire crew of the ship combined, the bounty amount is only 80 million Bailey pirates, it is so strenuous. Moreover, this is what they achieved after nearly a year of training. Thinking about his apprentice Bai Yi again, Zephyr's face became even more melancholy. Alas, this is really a comparison of people to death, and comparison of goods has to be thrown away. Recalling the happy time of teaching Bai Yi's strength is completely the same every day, with new surprises every day. This makes Zephyr, the teacher, feel a sense of accomplishment. But now these students, when Zephyr teaches them, feel their heads hurt, and they can't teach them no matter how hard they teach them. Everyone carries one head on two shoulders, why is there such a big gap? In fact, it is normal for the gap to be large. After all, they are not hanging on the wall like Bai Yi. Teacher Zephyr, are we going back to the training camp now? A beautiful woman with long, silky, ocean blue wavy hair walked up to Zephyr and respectfully asked for instructions. It has been half a month since you came out this time. You have been tempered enough and you know your shortcomings. It is time to go back. Zephyr said slowly, however, let's not go directly back to the training camp first, and then go to the Sabayati Islands. Ain asked curiously, are you going to see senior brother Bai Yi? Mentioning Bai Yi, Zephyr's originally melancholy face showed a smile again. Seeing it is second, mainly because I want to test whether his strength has deteriorated. I am afraid that he will relax his self-cultivation while stationed in Sabayati. Ain pursed his lips and asked softly, Teacher Zephyr, I want to ask, is senior brother Bai Yi really strong? Zephyr smiled proudly, of course, with Bai Yi's strength, there is no problem even if he becomes a general. Is he stronger than Teacher Zephyr? The smile on Zephyr's face froze and he coughed, ahem, how is this possible? Compared to me, that boy Bai Yi is far behind. Ain was obviously too naive, and because of his admiration for Zephyr, he didn't notice Zephyr's strange expression at all. He said in an admiring tone, Teacher Zephyr is indeed the former Marine General. Listening to Ain's admiring tone, Zephyr felt much relieved. Although these students now are far away from the great root compared to Bai Yi's talent. But they are at least a little better than Bai Yi. Bai Yi would not speak to him in such an admiring tone. If Bai Yi were to say it, it would probably be. That's it, Teacher Zephyr, is the former Marine General this powerful? My dogs are better than you, well, they all laughed. It can make Zephyr angry almost to death. Every time they spar, if his concentration is not strong enough, Zephyr would have killed him long ago. I see it, my dear son, hurry up and paddle to the east. An old woman who was only half a meter tall held a telescope in front of her eyes with her dry hands, looking in the direction of the Zephyr warship. On the boat, a fat man nearly 7 meters tall, with his arms bulging, paddled vigorously, and the speed of the entire boat suddenly increased. Hey, why is the distance getting farther and farther? Looking at the gradually smaller target in the telescope, the old woman put down the telescope. Suddenly he jumped up in anger, swung the telescope in his hand and hit Whitebeard 2 on the ankle, and cursed angrily, why are you so stupid? This is the west, and that is the east. How could I give birth to a son as stupid as you? Listening to Miss Jin's cursing words, Whitebeard I's eyes quickly became misty, and he cried, Mom, I was wrong, please don't hit me again. Miss Jin looked at the warship in the training camp again and said excitedly, the person on that ship should be the former Marine General, Zephyr. As long as we kill him, we will definitely become famous across the sea. Whitebeard 2 asked innocently, Mom, can we go find Dad? Of course, as long as you kill that person, you can recognize your father. Miss Jin said in a bewitching tone. Hearing this, Whitebeard 2 became even more excited, and the sails in his hands danced like afterimages, like rotating propellers. The speed of the entire ship doubled again, approaching Zephyr at an extremely fast speed. While Zephyr was chatting with Ain, a man dressed as a ninja dart came forward and said, Teacher Zephyr, it seems that a pirate ship is coming from the west, it is very fast, and it seems to be heading towards us. Pirates, Are they coming for us? Zephyr followed Binns to the side of the ship and saw a pirate ship rushing towards it at an extremely fast speed. It was estimated that it would directly collide with the warship in half a minute. Seeing this, Zephyr shouted loudly, "Quick, drive the boat to the north." At the same time, he was a little confused about the situation on the other side. What does this mean? It was a suicide attack and a boat ramming into a boat. Is this something humans do? On Whitebeard II's side, Miss Jin once again hit Whitebeard II's instep hard and cursed in a harsh and unpleasant voice. Slow down. Slow down. We're about to hit you, you idiot, I'm so angry. Are you going to kill your mother? Miss Jin's wrinkled old face showed endless panic. If they were to collide like this, with Whitebeard II's physical condition, he would definitely not die. It's probably just a little bit of dust on the body. But she is just an ordinary old woman in her 70s. If she collides with her like this, she will be a mess. Fortunately, Zephyr's order was timely and the warship veered a little further north. The two did not collide. Whitebeard II's ship passed directly through the previous position of the warship. But Whitebeard too broke the oar in his hand, but it didn't work, and he still couldn't stop. In Zephyr's doubtful eyes, he was far away again. Zephyr is a little confused now about what the other party wants to do. Even though she knew he was Marine, she rushed towards him. The person who came here is not kind. Zephyr ordered, Ain and Binns, take the other students and stay away. I will take action against the pirates this time. Ain and others could not believe in Zephyr's strength. In their opinion, as long as Teacher Zephyr is here, there will be no problems. For a time, the sky was covered with dark clouds, thunder snakes were swimming in the sea of clouds, and the atmosphere was extremely depressing. The next moment, a huge black shadow fell from the sky, followed by a bright broadsword, which struck Zephyr heavily on the head. This sudden sword struck Zephyr with the force of thunder, and the bright blade reflected Zephyr's calm face. Facing this sword, Zephyr not only did not choose to retreat, but instead faced the sword. His arms were instantly covered with armed domineering energy, and his purple-black fist swung towards the blade. Zephyr knew that he could not dodge. If he dodged the knife and let it hit the ship, it would easily cause damage to the ship's hull. There are hundreds of training camp students on board. Once the warship is sunk, it is easy for the students to die. That's why he chose to take the initiative. Under Zephyr's full attack, the right fist he swung was like obsidian, hitting the sword hard. Bang! The fists and knives intersected, making a tooth-piercing sound, and dozens of purple-black thunder snakes spattered out with their fangs and claws. Ain and others not far away felt uncomfortable in their hearts unconsciously. What a strength! Zephyr was secretly shocked, and his right fist, which was wrapped in armed domineering energy, was directly hit with a deep white mark. The figure moved and returned to the ship again. Only then did Zephyr see the enemy in front of him clearly. This sight shocked Zephyr. They are so similar, no matter the height, the big knife in their hands, especially the two crescent-shaped beards. He looks exactly like Whitebeard. Could it be that this is Whitebeard's man, and Whitebeard wants to take action against me? Thinking of this, Zephyr said in a deep voice, "Who are you, Whitebeard?" When Whitebeard too heard Zephyr's question, he didn't take any further action. Instead, he responded stupidly, "I am his son, Edward Weeble." Whitebeard has a son. How come we, Marine, don't know this news? Zephyr did not doubt the authenticity of the news for a while. Because they are so similar, and from the previous confrontation, Zephyr felt Weeble's terrifying power, which was exactly the same as the white beard in his youth. Zephyr continued to ask, "What about the man with the white beard?" Edward Weeble responded, "Dad is in New World. Mom said that as long as I kill you, I can recognize my father, so you just let me kill you." Hearing this, Zephyr was about to curse. "What do you mean, kill me so that you can recognize your father? Did I stop you father and son from recognizing each other? Your family's affairs have something to do with me. Why do you want me to come to you?" However, through the conversation just now, Zephyr discovered that the man in front of him, who claimed to be Whitebeard's son, seemed to be mentally abnormal. To put it simply, he looks like a fool. But this guy's strength is indeed not weak. There are still hundreds of training camp students on board, and they are not suitable for fighting here. Zephyr rolled his eyes, thought of a way, and shouted to Weeble, "Actually, I can let you and Whitebeard get to know each other as soon as possible. When Wabel heard this, he immediately became energetic and asked excitedly, "Really? Can I really recognize my father?" Zephyr smiled and said, "Of course, as long as you follow me, you will naturally see Whitebeard." Although Zephyr felt guilty for deceiving a fool, there was nothing he could do about it. For the sake of the students behind him, Zephyr had no choice but to make this decision. As long as Wabel follows him, he will be taken directly to Bai Yi and give him a master-disciple mixed doubles match. Then, he was imprisoned directly in the Advancement City. In the future, if Whitebeard can also be captured and brought into Impel Down City, it will be a good time for the father and son to recognize each other in Impel Down City. This is not considered a breach of promise. Wabel didn't question Zephyr's words at all. He put away the long knife and said naively, "Since you can take me to see Whitebeard, I won't beat you." Hearing this, Zephyr let out a breath and thought to himself, "Fortunately he is a fool, but he is easy to deceive." But just when Zephyr was feeling relieved, a dry and thin palm like a chicken's claw suddenly stretched out from the side of the ship, gripping the deck tightly. "My stupid son, do you want to kill your mother? You are really worse than a pig." Miss Jin finally climbed onto the boat. Her ugly face looked extremely scary because of her anger, and she yelled at Wabel. Before, she was standing on Wabel's shoulders, but Wabel jumped out of the boat and attacked Zephyr. She became unstable for a moment and fell directly from Wabel's shoulders and fell into the sea. It took a lot of effort to climb up from the sea. Then he heard Zephyr's words to deceive Wabel, and Wabel believed Zephyr's lies. She was so angry that she almost fell back into the sea. When Wabel saw Miss Jin, he said aggrievedly, "Mom, I was wrong." "Mom." Zephyr was so frightened that she almost shouted out too. "The old woman in front of me, less than half a meter tall and with a mean look. She's actually Whitebeard's wife. Are there any problems with Whitebeard's eyes? Besides, the proportions between the two of you are not quite right, right?" If it were true, Zephyr couldn't even imagine the scene at that time. After Miss Jin taught Wabel a lesson, he stood aside, pointed at Zephyr and said, "Kill this guy quickly." Wabel wondered, "But, he can take us to meet our father." Seeing Wabel believe Zephyr's words so easily, Miss Jin almost became angry to death. If Zephyr could really bring him and his son to recognize each other, it would be a hell of a job. Miss Jin kept beating Wabel, "Kill him quickly, otherwise, mother will not want you." When he heard that his mother didn't want him anymore, Wabel immediately became afraid and picked up the long knife and rushed towards Zephyr again. Zephyr's arms are also silently covered with armed domineering energy. Since there is no way to avoid it, the only choice is to fight. The battle between the two is about to break out. Although Wabel is big, he is not clumsy at all. In addition, his terrifying strength is comparable to that of Whitebeard when he was young. After fighting for more than a dozen times, Zephyr didn't get any benefit at all. The dark arms trembled slightly, and several deep white knife marks appeared on them. Zephyr's breathing became increasingly rapid, his chest kept rising and falling, and there were signs of an asthma attack. But Wabel, as if nothing was wrong, waved his long knife and struck at him again. This is a true portrayal of boxing being afraid of young people. In addition, all the trainees from the training camp were on board, which made Zephyr worried. If this continues, everyone on the ship will die. Zephyr shouted, "Ain, hurry up and leave this place." As soon as he finished speaking, the nearly 3-meter-long knife slashed down his head and face, not giving Zephyr any chance to breathe. Under Wabel's violent offensive, Zephyr could only barely hold on, without even a chance to fight back. Teacher Zephyr, Ain and others looked at Zephyr struggling to hold on, and wished they could step forward to help Zephyr. But they also know that their strength is too weak. If they go up, they will only become Zephyr's burden. Just when everyone was at a loss what to do, a chuckle suddenly came from the air. "Teacher Zephyr, you can't do it if you don't accept it." After Bai Yi got Zephyr's life card, based on the ability of the life cards to attract each other. Follow the direction pointed by the life card and move forward at full speed without any delay. Bai Yi did not hesitate to use his strength, and finally saw Zephyr's ship not far away. He also noticed Wabel who was fighting Zephyr. Although Teacher Zephyr was a little embarrassed under Wabel, he finally caught up. There is no worst-case scenario. And it seemed that the fighting time between the two sides was not too long. It was only because Teacher Zepha's asthma relapsed that he showed signs of decline so quickly. Seeing that nothing happened to Zepha, Baiyi's nervous mood immediately relaxed a lot. So, he said jokingly, Teacher Zepha, you can't do it if you don't accept it. Yin, who was anxious, followed the sound and looked towards the sky. His delicate little face showed joy. It's senior brother Baiyi. Senior brother Baiyi, hurry up and help Teacher Zepha. Baiyi smiled and said, don't worry, I will take action later. When Zepha heard Baiyi's voice, the tension in his heart was swept away and he asked, why are you here, you brat? I'm afraid that if I don't come, I'll never see Teacher Zepha again. Seeing Baiyi's smiling face, Zepha suddenly became so angry that he wanted to punch Baiyi in the face. With Baiyi here, Zepha felt much more at ease. He no longer acted as cautiously as before, fearing that he would not be able to defeat the opponent once he used his ultimate move. If you don't have the physical strength, you can only lead the way and be killed. Zepha snorted coldly, HMPH, do you think your master's position as Marine General was for nothing? Keep your eyes open. Zepha's aura suddenly changed, and he looked as if he was 20 years younger, with a dark-armed domineering aura covering his entire upper body. Instead of dodging Weibel's attack, he directly hit it hard with his shoulders. His legs were slightly bent. The huge force caused the entire bow of the ship to suddenly sink, causing countless exclamations. Then, Zepha grabbed the knife shaft with both hands, exerted force suddenly, and directly pulled Weibel with the knife in front of him. Zepha shouted softly, crush and break. The armed domination of the whole body only covers the position from the fist to the wrist, and the pitch-black appearance is like a black hole, as if it can swallow all the light. This is Zepha's strongest move. His fists cut through the air, leaving afterimages and constantly hitting Weibel's chest. Because the punch was too fast, it rubbed against the air and produced sparks, which suddenly turned into blazing flames and clung to Weibel's chest. For a moment, the air was even filled with the smell of roasted meat. Every punch hit Weibel's chest, leaving a deep punch mark on it. In less than 10 seconds, Weibel's chest was dented, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely miserable. Under the extremely fast attack, Weibel didn't even have time to react. With the final punch, Weibel flew out like a kite with its string broken. With a heart-piercing scream, Miss Jin was pressed under her body. Zepha barely controlled his breathing, ignoring his waist that almost hit him, straightened his chest and walked to Baiyi. Looking at Baiyi's somewhat dull look, he said with great satisfaction, have you seen, this is your master's true strength. Baiyi was still digesting the scene just now, and stammered, this is, Fire Fist plus Pegasus Meteor Fist. This is so similar. Zepha, with a dark face, gave Baiyi a slap in the face angrily. This is my special move, smash and break. How about it? Do you want to learn it? The corner of Baiyi's mouth twitched, and he thought to himself, what's there to learn? I can kill someone with one punch, why do I have to throw so many punches? However, taking into account the pride of the old man Zepha, Baiyi pretended to admire him and said, Teacher, your stunts are too powerful. If your apprentice is stupid, I'm afraid he won't be able to learn them. Hearing Baiyi's flattery, Zepha felt comfortable all over, patted Baiyi's shoulder and said with a smile. Ha ha ha, although you are a bit stupid, your teacher is me. With my guidance, you will definitely be able to learn it. You have to trust your teacher. Baiyi looked at Zepha's proud look and rolled his eyes helplessly. Okay, I said you were fat, but you still breathed. When Ain and other disciples saw Zepha's defeated enemies, they immediately gathered around and said with great admiration. Teacher Zepha, you are so strong. Yes, that move just now was so cool, I really want to learn it. Under the praise of many students, the smile on Zepha's face became wider and wider, and it seemed that the pain all over his body was relieved a lot. Just when everyone was happy, Weibel, who seemed to have lost his life, stood up again and cried bitterly. Mommy, Mom, what's wrong with you? Miss Jin was too dead to be dead anymore. In her two-dimensional form paper figure, Weibel twisted her up and put her in his arms, crying bitterly. Well, being weighed down by Weibel's weight of thousands of kilograms. Not to mention an old woman in her 70s, even a strong adult man can't stand it. But Zepha's expression was no longer as relaxed as before. What kind of monster is this? After being smashed and beaten with all his strength, he was still able to stand up. It seems that he still has a certain fighting capacity. Zephyr himself, however, found it difficult to even move significantly. In other words, if Bai Yi hadn't come, I'm afraid all the people in this boat would have died in the hands of that fool. Weibo looked at Zephyr and others. His eyes were blood red, the corners of his mouth were still bleeding, his chest was sunken, and he didn't know how many ribs were broken. But even so, Weibo still had the strength to fight. Weibo looked like a madman and yelled, "You killed my mother, and I want to avenge my mother." Seeing this situation, Ain and others looked at Zephyr again, with an obvious intention, waiting for teacher Zephyr to take action to deal with Weibo. Zephyr, on the other hand, is very aware of his own situation, and now it is difficult for him to even move, let alone take action. But Zephyr's expression remained unchanged, and he said in a disdainful tone, "This guy has been seriously injured by me, and he doesn't have much strength left. If I take action again, it will feel like he is bullying the smaller one. Just in time, your senior brother Bai Yi is here. Let him take action on my behalf. You can also see Bai Yi's strength." Ain and others were convinced of Zephyr's words and turned their attention to Bai Yi. Zephyr breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, it was so dangerous that he almost made a fool of himself in front of the students. Bai Yi looked at Zephyr's chest that was rising and falling like a bellows, and his right hand was still on his waist, barely straightening his back. I complained in my heart. That's it, I have the nerve to say that I don't want to bully the small. If you have the ability, just go up and bully me. This old guy is getting more and more shameless. But Bai Yi never thought that it was after he became a disciple of Zephyr. Zephyr gradually became what he is now. Although Bai Yi wanted to refuse to fight, let teacher Zephyr take action again and make a fool of teacher Zephyr. But after thinking about it carefully, if I really did this, I would probably be expelled from the teacher by teacher Zephyr. Well, since teacher Zephyr asked me to fight, I have no choice but to take action. Bai Yi took a few steps and walked in front of everyone, making a fighting stance. Zephyr looked at Bai Yi's back, nodded with satisfaction, and explained to the students behind him. You should be optimistic. Although Bai Yi's strength is inferior to mine, it is still at the level of a general. Normally, you would never have the chance to witness a showdown between strong men of this level. This is a great opportunity for you. You must seize it and try to learn something from Bai Yi. Many students nodded like chickens pecking at rice, staring at Bai Yi intently. I want to see how strong this senior brother Bai Yi is. At such a young age, he was called a strong man with the strength of a general by teacher Zephyr. Weibo, holding a big knife, rushed over like a madman and kept shouting, "Give my mother her life." Bai Yi chuckled and said, "Didn't you kill your mother by yourself? If you want revenge, shouldn't you kill yourself first?" At this moment, Zephyr and the students were all shocked. What senior brother Bai Yi said makes sense, but it's not entirely reasonable. After hearing Bai Yi's words, Weibo froze on the spot, his face full of confusion. It seemed that Bai Yi was right. Everyone looked at each other, and someone whispered, "Senior brother Bai Yi, you can't tell that guy to commit suicide with just one sentence, can you? Judging from the other party's IQ, this is not impossible." Weibo thought for a long time and still couldn't figure it out, but he wasn't stupid enough to actually give himself a knife. Instead, he waved his sword and rushed towards Bai Yi regardless of it. "I don't care, it was you who killed my mother. I will kill you to avenge my mother." After saying this, Weibo jumped up from the boat, and the bright blade suddenly turned black and purple. There was a loud thunder in the sky, and countless thunder snakes fell down and struck the water, splashing huge waves, like forming a thunder field. Weibo fell from the sky like a meteorite, the blade wrapped with endless power of wind and thunder, and a deafening explosion sounded throughout the space. Zephyr's pupils shrank and his expression was solemn. What a terrifying knife! Is this the true strength of this fool? This knife struck down, and if Bai Yi couldn't catch it, the whole ship would be chopped into pieces by this knife. But it is impossible for Zephyr to take action at this time. Can he stop it with only the white Yoruichi? Bai Yi narrowed his eyes slightly, shook his head and sighed, "This trick is good for showing off, but it doesn't work for me." Ding! In the astonished eyes of everyone, Bai Yi faced the knife that seemed to be destroying the world, and he just stretched out one finger to resist it. Countless purple-black thunder and lightning followed the blade and touched the area around Bai Yi's fingers, and then suddenly disappeared, as if they had been subjected to a more terrifying force. The blade was only a few centimeters away from Bai Yi's finger, but no matter how hard Weibo exerted himself, there was no way to shorten this short distance. Even though the long knife in Weibo's hand has been bent into a C shape, he can't press it down any further. Zephyr was shocked by Bai Yi's strength. What the hell is this? After not seeing each other for just half a month, can his strength grow to this point? You're not that strong on drugs, right? The students' eyes gleamed and they whispered, Senior brother Bai Yi is too strong, isn't he? Are all the generals the same monsters as senior brother Bai Yi? Hearing this, Zephyr twitched the corner of his mouth and thought, come on. If the generals were like this, the sea would have been in chaos long ago. This white knight is obviously extremely strong. When everyone was shocked, Bai Yi bent his finger slightly and then popped it out. Weibo was seen flying directly into the sky like a cannonball being launched. Bai Yi quietly disappeared from everyone's eyes, and the next moment, he appeared next to Weibo. At this time, Weibo looked panic-stricken and shouted, my father is Whitebeard, and I am his son. You can't kill me. Zephyr was stunned when he heard it. Yes, this is Whitebeard's biological son. With Whitebeard's protective spirit, if you kill his godson, he will hunt you for the rest of your life. If you killed his own son, wouldn't he immediately go crazy? Maybe, if you hide in the Marine headquarters, he will dare to come directly to kill you. It would be safer to arrest Weibo first and then deal with it after a clear investigation. Having made up his mind, Zephyr was about to persuade Bai Yi when Bai Yi drew his sword. In midair, Bai Yi smiled at Weibo and said, you gave me a knife just now, and I will give you a knife now. Do you think it's fair? Bai Yi held Feng Ming at his waist with his backhand. Before the knife came out, a very long crack suddenly appeared in the middle of the originally dark clouded sky. Everyone suddenly felt a biting chill, as if there were countless knives pointed at them, making people's hair stand on end. Bai Yi drew out Feng Ming, covered it with armed domineering energy, and said lightly, I have a sword that can cut the sea. I saw an extremely long and eye-catching light blue sword energy, like a bright crescent moon, falling from the sky and falling into the sea in an instant. Weibo's whole body was cut into two pieces from the middle, with the left and right sides separated symmetrically, and there was strong horror and disbelief in his eyes. The sea, thousands of meters deep, was split into two by the sword energy, revealing the soft sea floor. You can even see frightened sea beasts swimming frantically on both sides of the separated water, trying to leave this terrifying place. The sea water kept surging, setting off waves of terrifying waves, rushing in all directions. Countless waves hit the ship, and even the marine warship was in danger of capsizing. Fortunately, it didn't last too long. After a few minutes, the water flowed back and the sea became calm again, as if nothing had happened. Bai Yi put away his sword and returned to the boat. Looking at the astonished people, he smiled awkwardly and said, sorry, I overexerted myself. Zephyr looked at Feng Ming on Bai Yi's waist and recalled the last time he saw Bai Yi. He asked Bai Yi why he was carrying a famous sword if he was not a swordsman. Bai Yi said yes, just to look good. He was dismissive of this and even educated Shiro Yoruichi. Good guy, feelings are not just a decoration. And you are not a swordsman, you are a great swordsman. I haven't discovered it in the past 6 months. Are you hiding it too deeply? Hundreds of students looked at Zephyr blankly. Zephyr asked them to learn something from Bai Yi before. So they watched Bai Yi's battle very carefully. Now, they really want to ask teacher Zephyr. You always want me to learn to block the opponent's attack with one finger, or to deflect the opponent with one finger, or to cut off the sea with one knife. Do you think we are worthy of studying? Get 500 points of world source power. Ding! Congratulations to host for killing Edward Weibo, successfully changing the plot of Weibo cuts off Zephyr's arm, Weibo becomes 7 warlords of the sea, etc., and obtains world source power, 5,000 points. It can be seen that if you want to obtain more world source power, the best way is to find a way to change the plot. Simply killing a strong person does not give much world source power. At least the gains and efforts are not equal. Although Weibo's current strength is not as good as 2 years later, his combat power is still close to that of a quasi-general and a general. Killing a strong man of this level can only obtain 500 world source power. There is indeed a shortage. After all, there are not many such strong men in the entire sea. It seems that I still have to actively participate in changing the plot. The situation in the Sabayati Islands has basically stabilized, and there is no need to stay any longer. After determining the direction, Bai Yi raised his eyes and found that everyone around him was looking at him with extremely strange eyes. Even Zephyr is the same. Why are you all looking at me like this? Bai Yi asked in surprise. Even if I am really handsome, you can't keep staring like this. If you look again, I'll charge you. If you look again, I'll charge an additional 500 belly. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they heard this. Many students turned their heads away in embarrassment, and some female students even blushed on their faces. This senior brother Bai Yi is really strong and handsome, but he is too shameless. But it was this white knight that prevented them from feeling too far apart. There is no feeling like facing a strong person and not even daring to say anything. Zephyr asked very curiously, Bai Yi, who did you learn swordsmanship from? In the half year I taught you, why have I never seen you use swordsmanship? As a rare top powerhouse in the sea, Zephyr's strength has declined with age, but his vision has become increasingly accurate. The realm of swordsmanship that Bai Yi showed just now definitely belongs to the realm of great swordsmen. And among the great swordsmen, he is also the most powerful one. There are such strong men in the sea. For example, Mahawk, one of the Shichibukai, and Shiki, the Golden Lion, are both famous swordsmen. With his sword alone, he could defeat all the swordsmen of his generation by one person. But these people have been practicing swordsmanship for many years, and the time they have spent practicing swordsmanship is probably older than Bai Yi's age. But if Bai Yi was already a great swordsman before joining the training camp, it was impossible for Zephyr not to notice this in the process of teaching Bai Yi. But if you say that Bai Yi reached the realm of a great swordsman within half a month of leaving the training camp, Zephyr couldn't believe it. If it could be that simple, all the swordsmen on the sea could commit suicide. That's why he asked Bai Yi so curiously. Hearing Zephyr's question, Bai Yi raised the corner of his mouth and said, Teacher Zephyr, do you want to hear the truth or a lie? Zephyr pouted and said, Nonsense, of course it's the truth. Bai Yi chuckled and said, The truth is, when I was heading to the Sabayati Islands, I fell asleep lying on a chair, and then a swordsman holding a bamboo stick suddenly appeared in my sleep. He calls himself the Atomic Samurai and says that I am too handsome, so he wants to teach me his lifelong swordsmanship, and then, Zephyr frowned and interrupted directly, Then you wake up and become a great swordsman. Yes, that was the situation at that time. Bai Yoruichi's face was natural, and there was no sign of lying. After all, it really is the truth. The situation at that time was indeed similar to what Bai Yi described, except that Bai Yi subtracted the part about the system from his description. Zephyr's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot at this time. In his opinion, Bai Yi was just talking nonsense. The students watching around also opened their mouths wide, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. Are we listening to a fairy tale? How could such an outrageous thing happen on the sea? Although they all felt that what Bai Yi said was too ridiculous, it was also ridiculous that Bai Yi became a great swordsman at such a young age. However, Binzi believed what Bai Yi said and asked excitedly, Senior brother Bai Yi, does that mean that we may encounter such a thing in the future? Bai Yi straightened his chest and said firmly, Yes, as long as you sleep more and dream more, you might be able to become a great swordsman overnight and become a strong man like me. As soon as this statement came out, the students completely exploded. You can become a great swordsman just by sleeping. Regardless of whether this is true or not, let's talk about it first. If you don't succeed, just catch up on some sleep. If you succeed, you'll make a lot of money. Looking at the students below who were eager to try, Zephyr's face turned dark as if covered with armed domineering aura. Are you all pigs? No one with any brain would believe Bai Yi's words. If it were really that simple, how could the great swordsman on the sea only have so many people? But these Marines' next generation of mid to high-level reserve officers actually believed it. And each one of them was ready to take action, so they just made a bunk on the floor and fell asleep in front of Zephyr. Good guys, can the future training camp courses be changed to how to fall asleep quickly? If you have everything you need to sleep, why should you train? However, when Zephyr, who was extremely angry, saw Ain, who was unmoved. He felt a sense of relief in his heart. Fortunately, there are still people with normal brains in the training camp. But before Zephyr could open his mouth to praise Ain, he heard Ain say in a disdainful tone. Senior brother Bai Yi said that the atomic samurai is willing to teach the way of swordsmanship only because of how handsome the senior brother is. You all look like crooked melons and jujubes, but you also want to be taught the inheritance of the way of swordsmanship. If you have this time to sleep, you might as well train hard to make a difference. The smile on Zephyr's face froze, there was a breath in his chest, his throat was blocked, and a trace of blood suddenly poured out of the corner of his mouth. Destroy. Destroy them all. Seeing this, Bai Yi quickly asked with concern, Teacher Zephyr, what's wrong with you? My old injury has recurred. It's okay. I'll be fine after a while. Zephyr looked at Bai Yi and asked seriously, the teacher wants to hear lies now. Tell the teacher the lies quickly. What is it? Well, the lie is that I have been practicing swordsmanship since I was born in my mother's womb, and I have been practicing it until now. Adding the 10 months in my mother's womb, it has been 19 years. As soon as Bai Yi finished speaking, Zephyr grabbed Bai Yi's arm excitedly and said, this is the truth. This is the fact. Everything you said before was all false. Hurry up and tell them this is the truth. This world is so magical, to be honest, no one believes it. Seeing Teacher Zephyr's abnormal appearance, Bai Yi was a little afraid that the old man would suddenly hit him. He was originally here to save Zephyr, but in the end, Teacher Zephyr was made mad by him. That's too much shit. In the office, Bai Yi was arranging some things for Smoker and others before leaving. Now, a week has passed since Teacher Zephyr was rescued. Within this week, Bai Yi applied for travel to the Warring States Fleet Admiral and left the Sabayati Islands. After all, now that I have enough money, the Atom branch can also be put to use. Go to the Seven Rivers capital, which has the best shipbuilding technology in the world, to build a warship of your own. A warship that reminds people of the White Knight when they see it. Rather than always using Rear Admiral Marine's standard warship. But this is only one of the purposes of Bai Yi's trip. Another purpose is to find a suitable famous knife. At least it is a famous sword belonging to the 21 skills of the Great Knife. The Feng Ming in his hand is no longer suitable for him to use. Although, for the strong, weapons are just the icing on the cake. However, during the last battle with Weibo, Bai Yi used armed color hockey to cover the sword body, not to enhance the power of the sword, but to protect Feng Ming. Otherwise, Feng Ming will be directly shattered as soon as Zhan Hai comes out. Bai Yi is too strong, it can't stand it at all. So during this trip, changing the knife was also Bai Yi's purpose. After arranging everything, Bai Yi prepared to leave with Dusky and Quick, leaving Smoker and Ferguson behind. This is also Bai Yi's arrangement after some thought. During this period of time, Ferguson kept the Sabayati Islands in order, allowing Bai Yi to live a comfortable life as a hands-off shopkeeper. Naturally, it is impossible to leave. Smoker is the strongest combat force on the island except Bai Yi, and is responsible for suppressing those who may cause trouble. Bringing Dasky along is naturally for the convenience of choosing a famous sword. As for Quick, he is just a coolie. Bai Yi originally wanted to visit Teacher Zephyr before leaving. However, Zephyr clearly refused, saying that seeing Bai Yi would aggravate the injury and be detrimental to recovery. He also said that this year, it would be best not to meet again and wait until later. Bai Yi couldn't help but give up the idea of visiting. And Zephyr is really afraid of Bai Yi now. If Bai Yi comes to the training camp, he will talk nonsense. The Marine Elite training camp can really be changed into a Marine all-day sleep camp. So it's better not to see him. But just when Bai Yi was about to leave, Aokiji unexpectedly appeared in Bai Yi's office and kept Bai Yi here on the grounds that he had a new mission. Before Aokiji could open his mouth, Byakuya said a lot. General Aokiji, what happened again? You see, I have approved my leave note and am ready to leave. If I stay to work again, will I have to pay overtime? Of course, the vacation time cannot be changed, it is best to extend it, we can't work in vain, right? Aokiji looked at Bai Yi in surprise. At this moment, he saw Kizaru's shadow on Bai Yi's body. Both the tone and the content of the words are so similar. Isn't this the Bai Yi pretending to be Kizaru? General Aokiji. General Aokiji, what's wrong with you? Byakuya stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Aokiji's eyes, pulling Aokiji out of his fantasy. Aokiji coughed lightly and said, I'm fine. I came here this time to tell you that what happened last time has come to an end. Bai Yoruichi was stunned. What happened last time? What happened to the Tianlong people? Aokiji nodded and said, it's a matter about the celestial dragons. Didn't it involve the Don Quixote family last time? Yes, but aren't they Shichibukai? The investigation of this kind of matter should not be left to the world government. What does it have to do with us marine? Aokiji hesitated and said, it seems that CP0's investigation found that the Don Quixote family does have a deal with the beast pirates, and in the near future, there will be a deal between the two parties, and the location is around the Sabayati Islands. So, what the world government means is that our marine and CP organizations will work together to secretly capture the Don Quixote family and ask about the disappearance of the Maple Cecil Palace. If Aokiji hadn't mentioned it, Byakuya would have forgotten that Maple Cecil Palace was still being imprisoned by Sonic. Bai Yi asked with a normal expression, did they find out the exact location of the transaction? After their observations these days, they have roughly identified 3 islands that may become trading islands: Gill Island, Wadden Island, and Saint Island. At that time, the world government will be responsible for Gill Island, and we, Marine, will be responsible for the remaining 2 islands. Once we discover that a transaction between the 2 parties has occurred, we will immediately notify each other and strive to capture them as soon as possible. Bai Yi finally figured it out. Although the world government began to suspect the Don Quixote family, it was difficult to take action without concrete evidence. After all, Doflamingo's status is quite special and cannot be investigated openly. Therefore, we are going to arrest a few cadres of the Don Quixote family to understand the specific situation. Marine is the tool used by the world government to conceal its true purpose, making Doflamingo think that they were originally here to capture the beast pirates. I just happened to discover the deal between the Don Quixote family and the beast pirates. However, Bai Yi still doesn't understand something. But, what does this matter have to do with me, Bai Yi? There are so many lieutenant generals in the Marine headquarters, it's hard to send anyone. Moreover, Aokiji was involved in this operation. As long as Kaido didn't do the transaction himself, there was no risk of the operation failing. Why do you have to drag me along? I'm still in a hurry to build a boat and change the knife. Aokiji explained helplessly, who told you to be a participant in the last incident, and you are not weak, and you are still stationed in the Sabayati Islands. Who do you want to find if you don't want to find me? Bai Yi is 3 points stronger than me, so he is indeed not weak. This is what Aokiji really thinks. What you said makes sense. Bai Yi said slowly. Perhaps the matter at Maple Cecil Palace can be resolved during this operation. Doesn't the world government just want Maple Cecil Palace? After confirming the trade island, Bai Yi asked Sonic to secretly stuff the Maple Cecil Palace to their trading location. Come and get the stolen goods. By then, Doflamingo will be covered in mouths, and I'm afraid it won't be clear. If we could really use this matter to get rid of the Don Quixote family, it can be regarded as changing the major plot points in the original work, and the world source power that can be obtained is definitely a lot. There is a lot of potential for this matter. No, I have to participate in this operation. To avoid unexpected mistakes when the time comes. Aokiji saw Bai Yi frowning, looking like he was thinking hard, and thought that Bai Yi was not very willing to participate in this operation. Come to think of it, everyone is going to take a vacation. Suddenly notify others that their vacation is cancelled, and prepare to take action. Moreover, this operation also involves the big trouble of the Tianlong people. Whoever it is, I am afraid that they will not feel comfortable. Out of admiration for Byakuya, Aokiji hesitated and said, Byakuya, if you really don't want to participate in this operation, I can apply to the Sengoku Fleet Admiral and ask him to meet your previous request. As soon as Aokiji finished speaking, he heard Bai Yi's righteous words, obeying orders is the first priority of a soldier, how could I not be willing? Besides, as a Major General of Marine, I should make some sacrifices for Marine. It's just a small vacation. It's no big deal if I don't rest. If everyone in Marine is self-centered, lazy and free, and unwilling to contribute to Marine, how can we Marine maintain justice on the sea? So, I must be involved in this operation. If not, I will go to Sengoku Fleet Admiral to get it. After hearing Bai Yi's words, everyone in Aokiji was dumbfounded. Brother, are you a chameleon? If there was a video call bug record, Aokiji really wanted Byakuya to see his face a few minutes ago. Who would have thought that these two sentences with completely opposite meanings could actually be uttered by the same person, and they were only a few minutes apart? When Aokiji heard the second half, his face turned red, and he had a reasonable suspicion that Bai Yi was criticizing why. After all, among the three marine generals, he is the most lazy and free-spirited, and he is afraid that something will happen to him. Unfortunately, he has no evidence. He can't admit to his face that he is lazy, right? As for Kizaru, who is also a marine general, there are some differences between him and Aokiji. Kizaru is lazy, but as long as your salary is in place, the four emperors will dare to give it a try. In comparison, Aokiji is more like a salted fish. Aokiji looked at Byakuya's expression of, "If you don't take me, I will fight you to the death." Aokiji said with a headache, okay, this time you will lead people to take charge of Saint Island. Tonight, you will lead people to ambush. Not too many people, only strong ones. Quote, Bai Yi nodded heavily, I'll do the work, don't worry, we will definitely be able to get the Maple Cecil Palace back this time. Aokiji sighed softly, I hope so. However, Bai Yi didn't plan to bring anyone with him this time. He went to Saint Island alone. For him, too many people is more troublesome and is not conducive to the implementation of his plan. For things like kidnapping Tianlong people, the fewer people know about it, the better. After all, they are not characters summoned by Bai Yi, and they can be 100% sure that they will not betray. After Bai Yi arrived at Saint Island, he first observed the surroundings and made sure there was no one else nearby. Then he notified Sonic to come over and meet. To be on the safe side, Sonic took off his iconic purple clothes this time and put on a marine uniform. The mask on his face was also taken off. A face similar to Urzu's was revealed. By then, even if he is discovered by Aokiji and the world government, Byakuya will be able to make things right for him. When Sonic saw Bai Yi, he respectfully said, Sir Bai Yi. How is Maple Cecil Palace doing now? Still in a coma, he should wake up in a while. Bai Yi was stunned for a moment and asked, It's been almost a month, why haven't you woke up yet? Were you so serious in the first place? After not eating for so long, people will starve to death. If Maple Cecil Palace dies, it will still have a big impact on Bai Yi's plan. Seeing that Bai Yi had misunderstood what he meant, Sonic quickly defended. It's like this. After the woman woke up, she made a lot of noise and was very troublesome. I was afraid that she would attract the attention of passing ships, so every time she woke up, I would knock her out again. Quote, Then she hasn't eaten for so long. I grabbed some wild beast meat and roasted it for her. The woman refused to eat it before, but later she was very hungry and ate it anyway. Then I waited for her to finish eating before knocking her out again, and I have continued like this until now. Quote, Hearing this, Bai Yi secretly smacked her lips, what a miserable woman, this kind of life is still a human being. And this Sonic, what normal man can do such a thing to a woman? Is this still a man? Wait, Bai Yi suddenly remembered something. The Sonic he summoned was in a state of orphan testicles, and he did not seem to be a normal man. Then this matter will be explained. Although Sonic's methods are extremely cruel, they are not without benefits. At least, until now, Maple Cecil Palace still doesn't know who kidnapped her. After Bai Yi told Sonic the plan, he asked Sonic to be ready to move at any time. Now that everything is ready, we are just waiting to see the Don Quixote family and the Beast Pirates appear. 3 days later, 2 ships departed from New World and Drake Rosa respectively, sailing to the Sabayati Islands. In fact, before the trading ship left, Doflamingo had already noticed something was wrong. His actions in all aspects seemed to be under surveillance. This feeling of being watched was very weak, but the cautious Doflamingo did not ignore this feeling. He also sent people to investigate to determine if someone was really targeting him. But in the end, nothing was found. If we hadn't already agreed on a trading time with the Beast Pirates and didn't dare to change the trading time at the risk of offending Kaido. Doflamingo even wanted to postpone the transaction for a month. There is no way, if the deal with the beast pirates is revealed. It is easy to cause commotion from all parties, and even his position as Shichibukai may be unstable. And he still needs this position to realize his ambition. Out of caution, Doflamingo even brought the family's top cadre, Torebel, who was usually responsible for protecting the special cadres, with him this time. I am just afraid that something unexpected will happen to this transaction. The beast pirates also attach great importance to this transaction. Send Jack, one of the 3 disasters, drought, out to trade. After all, this is related to Kaido's ability to form an army of animal-type ability users. The 2 parties continued to move towards the encirclement of world government and marine. When the Don Quixote family and the beast pirates traded ships, Baiyi and Aokiji got the news through CP0 feet when they first set sail. Moreover, Baiyi and Aokiji were instructed not to take action in advance, but to wait until the 2 parties make a deal before taking action to capture it. When things developed to this point, Baiyi knew that he could start his plan. Notify Sonic to transfer, then all you need to do is wait quietly. Look at the transaction location of both of them, and who will choose the island to ambush. Without knowing where the 2 parties' trading ships will meet, Baiyi could only move Maple Cecil Palace to Saint Island first and make complete preparations. So, Baiyi followed Sonic to the unknown desert island where Maple Cecil Palace was imprisoned. The desert island is not far from Saint Island. With Baiyi and Sonic's speed comparable to the speed of sound, they can arrive in less than an hour. Sonic temporarily placed the Maple Cecil Palace in a cave, although it looked relatively clean. But this is only relatively clean for ordinary people. For a noble, celestial dragon like the Maple Cecil Palace, even the air outside Mariajoya feels dirty, and they need to wear a bubble mask to travel. Now I am forced to stay in this kind of place for nearly a month. The food, clothing, housing and transportation are completely different from my previous life. And these things that are completely unacceptable to other Tianlong people, Maple Cecil Palace have actually endured them all and survived until now. This can only show that Maple Cecil Palace is by no means the kind of brainless and arrogant celestial dragon. On the contrary, she is very smart and knows when to make trouble and when not to make trouble. But being too smart is not a good thing. Baiyi stood not far from the cave entrance, thoughts rushing through his mind. I was thinking about whether to cancel this plan and kill Maple Cecil Palace directly and throw it in the wilderness. It is estimated that within half a day, her body will be eaten clean by the beasts on the island. No trace will be left. You won't leave any risk to yourself. But it is impossible to completely eliminate the Don Quixote family just by making transactions with the beast pirates. After all, in the original work, Doflamingo was only imprisoned by Marine in the 6th floor of Impel Down City even after all his crimes were exposed by Luffy. Dealing with the beast pirates can only be considered a bit tricky for him. After thinking for a moment, Baiyi decided to continue executing the plan. But you can add something more to it to confuse Maple Cecil Palace. Even if Baiyi is really discovered to have done it by then. Baiyi had also earned a large amount of world power at that time, and could suppress an era by himself. It doesn't matter whether it is discovered or not. Inside the cave, Maple Cecil Palace no longer looks as noble as before. Its complexion is yellow and slightly thin, and the expensive white dress on its body has become somewhat black. There were even tatters in many places, and the white skin and good figure could be vaguely seen. The whole person was lying on the ground covered with withered grass, as if he had fallen into a coma and was not yet awake. But even when Maple Cecil Palace was in a coma, Sonic still covered his eyes with cloth strips and tied his hands and feet with ropes, making it foolproof. He is worthy of being called the lone-tested ninja. From the way Sonic treats women, it can be seen that he no longer has that kind of worldly desire. At this time, Maple Cecil Palace has gradually woken up. When invisible, the hearing will be much stronger than normal. She seemed to have heard 2 different footsteps coming from the entrance of the cave just now, but it seemed that there was only one kind of footsteps. The smart Maple Cecil immediately realized that something might happen today. And these things will determine her life or death. These people with unknown origins kept her in a cave for more than 20 days, and now they are finally going to take action against her. Maple Cecil Palace listened to the footsteps getting closer and closer, but did not wake up and remained unconscious. For the Maple Cecil Palace, which can't even be considered as the fifth scum, coma is her best way to protect herself now. Bai Yi and Sonic came in and saw the unconscious Maple Cecil Palace. They looked at each other with a smile on their faces, but made no sound. It seems that this Tianlong person is not aware that the breathing rhythm when he is comatose and awake is different. In fact, Bai Yi and Sonic noticed it when she first woke up, but they didn't expose her on the spot. However, this is also convenient for Bai Yi's improvised plan. Bai Yi lowered his voice, making it sound richer, and said, "Finally we can solve this problem, which has forced us to spend the past month on a deserted island. I'm bored to death." Sonic also changed his voice and said, "Don't speak. It will be troublesome if she remembers your voice. There is nothing to be afraid of. When the deal comes, if she is handed over to the Beast's pirates, there is no guarantee whether she will survive in the future. What you said makes sense. Once you join the Beast pirates, it will be difficult to get out again." At this time, Maple Cecil Palace almost jumped up after hearing the conversation between the two. They were actually going to hand me over to the Beast Pirates, one of the 4 emperors. Although Mary Gioia often lives in Maple Cecil Palace, she often hears the name of the 4 emperors. These are 4 monsters at the top of the sea. For them, it may be a bit troublesome to kill Tianlong people, but they will never dare to kill them. Under the tension, Maple Cecil Palace's breathing became slightly faster. After noticing this detail, Bai Yi prepared to reveal some more explosive information to increase credibility and make Maple Cecil Palace fall into the trap. Bai Yi pretended to be careless and said, "This celestial dragon is really valuable. Her value is actually worth 100 artificial devil fruits. Yes, Kaido has been collecting animal devil fruits everywhere in order to build an army of animal devil fruit users, and now, he will actually trade 100 artificial devil fruits for the celestial dragons. It's really incomprehensible. Quote, forget it, no matter what you do, just follow the young master's arrangements. Little Lord, there are very few pirates who call themselves young master, could it be Doflamingo?" Maple Cecil Palace's breathing became a little more rapid. It turned out that it was Doflamingo who had done this to me. And what they just revealed in their conversation was a big secret. Doflamingo actually developed an artificial devil fruit. This is a technology that even Vegapunk has not developed. Moreover, they had never heard of Kaido's secret formation of the Beast Legion. No matter which one of these 2 pieces of news is spread, it will be enough to cause the sea to shake. When Bai Yi saw the fish take the bait, he knew that the secret he had told was enough. So he said to Sonic, "The transaction will begin soon, prepare to transfer now. By the way, in order to prevent the Tianlong people from waking up on the way, you'd better give her a try again, so as not to ruin our affairs." After hearing this, Maple Cecil Palace cursed in his heart, "What kind of evil people are these? They are so vicious. I am still unconscious, and they want to hit me again." Unfortunately, there was no chance to say this sentence. Sonic moved very quickly, causing Maple Cecil Palace, who was pretending to be unconscious, to actually faint. The 2 packed the Maple Cecil Palace into a wooden box and brought it back to Saint Island. Bai Yi didn't have to wait too long before he received the exact information. The location of the transaction between the 2 parties was on Gill Island guarded by CP0. Although it was not on the island he was guarding, it was not a bad thing for Bai Yi. It is safer to let others discover than to let yourself discover. But in this case, it will be more troublesome to implement the plan. After Bai Yi received the news, he rushed towards Gill Island at full speed. As for Sonic, he took Maple Cecil Palace and followed far behind. Find the right time to place the wooden box containing the Maple Cecil Palace among the goods traded between the 2 parties. When Byakuya arrived, he found that in addition to Aokiji and Reiju, the world government had sent another member of CP0. His figure was the same as that of a normal person, and he wore a black mask with a crying face on his face, which made him look a bit creepy. Seeing Ling Ju standing respectfully behind the opponent, this person's ranking is probably more than 1 level higher than Ling Ju. Because the relationship between Bai Yi and Ling Ju was not very harmonious last time, after Bai Yi arrived, Ling Ju did not introduce his fellow CP0 feet out loud. Instead, Aokiji introduced him, "Byakuya, this is Rei-san from CP0 feet, the person in charge of our operation." Bai Yi nodded towards Ling San and completely ignored Ling Ju. Anger welled up in Ling Ju's heart, but at this time, it was hard to break out, so he had to hold it back. Ray San looked at Bai Yoruichi and said in a hoarse voice, "Are you Byakuya?" A week ago, Edward Weeble, who called himself Whitebeard too, was killed by you with one knife. Bai Yi said calmly, "If you are talking about that idiot who looks a bit similar to Whitebeard, then I should have killed him." Hearing this, Ling San's expression under the mask changed slightly, and he looked deeply at Bai Yi. Although no one on the sea now knows the reputation of Edward Weeble, let alone his strength. But Ling San knew it. He still remembered that half a year ago, when he was on an investigation mission and passed by a certain sea area. I heard someone claiming to be the son of Whitebeard, one of the 4 emperors. Out of the instinct of a spy, he pursued it all the way. When seeing Weeble, 03 was also shocked by Weeble's appearance. He looked so much like Whitebeard. This left Zero-san without any doubt and directly confirmed Weeble's identity. But when he was about to capture Whitebeard's biological son, he made a great achievement. But he found that Weeble's strength was actually no less than him. Coupled with his almost terrifying recovery ability, even 03 was no match for him. Therefore, 03 had to give up this idea and report the news after returning to Marigio. I never heard anything about Weeble again. But until a few days ago, he suddenly heard that an 18-year-old Marine Major General named Bai Yi had killed Weeble. His first reaction was, "Are you kidding me?" With Weeble's strength and terrifying resilience, he could not fall behind even against a general-level combat force. You tell me, he was actually killed by a Marine Major General with one sword. You're still 18 years old, are you kidding me? But after being confirmed by many people and confirming that the news was correct, 03 was stunned. A strong man who can kill Weeble with one sword actually serves as Marine Major General. Isn't this a joke? Just in time, taking advantage of this operation, 03 asked Bai Yi to participate and wanted to see Bai Yi. After seeing it, Zero-san was even more sure of his thoughts. After pondering for a moment, 03 spoke words that shocked everyone extremely. Bai, after this operation is over, you can give up your identity as Marine and join CP0 feet, and I can be your guarantor. I have read your information and know that you have never eaten devil fruit. If you are willing to join CP0 feet, as long as you pass normal training, we will provide you with a very powerful devil fruit. And it is definitely as powerful a fruit as the Logia devil fruit and the animal-type phantom beast devil fruit. Bai Yi was stunned. What do you mean? You want me to be a dog for the celestial dragons? And you want to seduce me with a devil fruit? Aokiji was stunned. What do you mean? You are poaching Marine in front of General Marine. Do you think that General Marine is just a decoration? Ling Ju was even more stunned. What do you mean? This guy is going to become my colleague. When Bai Yi remained silent, 03 continued, as long as you can become a formal member of CP0 feet, I can guarantee that you will become 04, or replace me as 03. As soon as these words came out, Bai Yi didn't have much reaction, and Ling Ju almost fainted on the spot. How the hell is it not enough to be a colleague, but in the blink of an eye, he has become my immediate boss? Thinking back to just now, he was still not dealing with Bai Yi, but now as long as Bai Yi nods, he can directly become his immediate boss and decide his life or death. This sense of disparity made Ling Ju feel jealous. Thinking about the cruel training that I have received since I was a child, and how I survived among thousands of selected children. He just successfully joined the top secret service organization, CP0. When he was outside, he was considered to have great power and could decide the life and death of several countries. He originally thought that he had reached a status beyond the reach of ordinary people. But the little Marine Major General in front of him suddenly turned into his immediate boss, which Ling Ju couldn't accept at all. How would Ling Ju feel if he knew that in Bai Yi's eyes, the position he was so keen on was just the top dog? Before Byakuya could reply, Aokiji's expression was serious, and a faint chill emanated from his body. The temperature instantly dropped several degrees, and frost suddenly formed on the green grass at his feet. Aokiji said coldly, "For now, we should focus on dealing with the beast pirates and Doflamingo. We can discuss other matters after the operation is over. This poaching is not done yet. Do you really think you don't take me, the Marine General, seriously?" Zero-san saw that Aokiji was showing signs of anger and stopped talking. After all, what I am doing now is indeed unreasonable. However, Rei-san still secretly signaled that Bai Yi should think about it carefully and wait until the action is over before making a reply. Tisk tisk, he's so handsome, he can get away with anywhere. General Marine and the spy chief almost got into a fight over me. Bai Yi thought rather narcissistically. As for Zero-san's proposal, Bai Yi didn't take it seriously at all. It's very simple. First, I'm a Marine, and if I get promoted, I will be rewarded with world power. He doesn't know how to be a spy leader, and Bai Yi doesn't want to be a dog for the celestial dragons. If he was really allowed to go, Marigio would probably be slaughtered in less than half a day. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.